Constellation is brought to you by Factor. I love Factor because I can skip the grocery store when I need to and get rid of all of the prepping and cleaning up of cooking and still get some awesome meals that are nutritional as well. This August, get Factor and enjoy eating well without the hassle. Simply choose your meals and enjoy fresh, flavor-packed meals delivered to your door, ready to go in just 2 minutes with no prep and no mess. Head to factormeals.com/con50 and use code CON50 to get 50% off. That's code CON50 at factormeals.com/con50 to get 50% off.
Constellation, Last Stand Media's conversational podcast, is brought to you by you. If you want to learn how to support our podcast network, head to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Constellation, Last Stand Media's conversational podcast. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined once again by my brother, Dagan Moriarty. Dagan, welcome back. You're really getting a little flippant with the fucking time off now. If I have to be totally honest with you here, you're just you're just disappearing for weeks at a time.
So
now?
This is a bad time to tell you about the vacation next week.
Oh, okay. Well, look at you guys are turning into the Woznocks.
No, we're not going on vacation again. That's enough vacations.
Our sister Dana's family, the Woznocks, they've been married for over 20 years now. They go on vacation over the summer so much that it gives me fucking agita, where I'm like, they like get back and then they're like, oh, we're going to the river. Oh, we're going to Maine. Oh, we're going. And I'm like, where? And I know their kids well enough to know I'm like, you just want to sit home and play video games, don't you?
Yeah, that's a kid. My kids at the end of this week, they couldn't wait to get back. You know, it's a nice sense of accomplishment, though. You feel like you went out, you did something, but now at this point, now it's nice to be. It's nice to be
How
home.
old are your kids again?
12. Well, he'll be 13 in a couple of weeks, and 16.
So what are they playing? Like, what is their main game they can't wait to get back to?
Graydon Lilia doesn't play games at all at this point.
Okay.
Graydon can't wait to get back to, well, his two big things right now are Rocket League again and Fortnite again. But he's in and out of stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
But those are the two things I know he was thinking about.
What a disappointment, huh?
Rocket League is still going strong, man. That's wild.
Unbelievable.
He's a little bit of a disappointment, right? I mean, when I was like, we and especially you, but we imbued him with so much. He grew up with an NES and an SNES controller in his hands. He did all these things, and he still got sucked into that shit. Not Rocket League. I like Rocket League. Shout out to Jeremy Dunham, the founder of Podcast Beyond, who was the VP at Psyonix for a very long time. He actually just popped up. He's at Bethesda's MMO studio now.
Oh, cool.
Oh, wow.
He retired. Okay. He made so much money when Psyonix got sold to Epic. And I was so happy for him because I love him. I mean, he was one of my first connections in the industry and he made just millions and millions of dollars. And so he retired, but he couldn't stay away. So now he's back at Bethesda. But Rocket League's good. But Fortnite, we just talked about Fortnite extensively on Sacred Symbols that went up this week when people are listening to this. And I was just saying, like, I keep saying about intellectually understanding games, right? And it's like, you gotta tip your cap to Fortnite. And what I was saying specifically about Fortnite is they're so powerful commercially that they've made the impossible possible with their metaverse of metaverse things and you guys would all know this, Jaffe, you would know this. Do you think Sony is like really thrilled that Aloy is getting the shit beat out of her by Master Chief in a game or something like that? Like they think about that kind of stuff, which is
I've never understood any of that. The minute I saw Superman running around with a gun, it really bothered me. Yeah. I was just like, what the fuck? Superman with a gun? Are you out of your fucking mind? You know? And I guess the logic is like Smash Brothers. Well, they're not really Superman. It's a toy of Superman. Oh, shut up.
Yeah, it's like cosplay.
There is some sort of meta though, right? Where it is supposed to be like the metaverse of metaverses, right? Where that's the whole idea of the game.
I guess.
Where it sucks. It could conceivably a company have anything in it, which is brilliant. Yeah. When you really think about it.
What I will tell you, a lot of people shit on Fortnite that are core gamers, and I think they're morons. No offense to them, because it is a great shooter. It is a really good game, and the best part about it is you've got Unreal 5 Creator 2.0 now, and you've got levels. People who don't know, all they know is like the pinata and the old, and it's like, Dirt Burger and all that. It's like, dude, it is advanced so much farther. There are levels now that look like Unreal 5 games like there's a Call of Duty level, there's a Amazon Indiana Jones Lara Croft level that you can play, and it's like Dreams, but they did it right. Survival horror, you can monetize it now. And then there are just crazy little modes that people put up and you play with your friends and they become these viral hits. It is worth re-investigating if you've been away from Fortnite for a very long time. And I understand people kind of shit on the art style, whatever, of the characters. That hasn't changed. But boy, it's gotten a lot better. It's amazing. It's a great game.
I'd say the only negative thing in my mind about Fortnite is if you have a problem with like the multiple, the insane amount of different IPs in it. Like if you don't like your favorite IP being bastardized, that sucks. But everything else about Fortnite is anybody who likes multiplayer shooters' dreams. Like that's great.
It's funny, and Jaffe, welcome to the show. Let's get you in here with a proper
everybody,
introduction.
it's nice to meet you. My name's David Jaffe. I'm from the 50s. I've taken a time machine here, and I'm on the show. I'm going crazy, and it feels weird.
Yeah, it does. Welcome. You must be.
Thanks for having me.
Your little time dilation. Welcome. Mm-hmm. Good to have you. And Ben Smith, associate producer. I always don't I always give you the wrong title? I give you random titles that you don't have.
Yeah, it's fine. Just as long as you pay me the same amount, I don't care what title.
Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks. I told my wife last week when I found out I was going to be on with Jaffe. She like came to my office and I was like, "Hey, I'm going to be on Constellation next week." She's like, "With who?" I was like, "With Jaffe." And she's like, "Oh, you like him, don't you?" And I was like, "Yeah, I like him a lot." And she goes, "What's your topic going to be?" And I said, "I'm going to talk about Twisted Metal." And she goes, "What's that?" I was like, "Oh my god!" But then Colin, I was going to talk about the TV show because I hadn't really heard you talk about the TV show.
It's great.
And then, so of course, Colin did the show on that. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to talk with him about the game. And then, of course, Colin did the episode on that. So
yeah, sorry, we're very Twisted Metal heavy right now.
It's all right.
I'm really engaged with the Twisted Metal IP right now. Like it feels like, and Dave, you'll understand this. I just wasn't into it when I was younger. I was just my mind was just drawn to other things. It's a total blank spot for me, with the exception of like these rentals and like we were saying, the long box and the je ne sais quoi about the long box games. You know, like Dig, you used to play that, didn't you? Play Raiden? That was a launch game.
Yeah.
And or Raiden, if you want to,
whatever it's called, but I love that shooter.
Yeah, that game actually looks great. Still, I went and looked at it not too long ago. It still looks really good. All right, my friends. Well, welcome to the show. Good to see all of you. Good to be here with you. And hey, a quick closing note about Fortnite. Jaffe, tell me if this sounds out of bounds. I was looking up. I just looked up their revenue, right? For the Fortnite revenue, it's like 4 billion, 5 billion, 6 billion, 7 billion a year, like so on and so forth. They've probably made more money on Fortnite. Profit on Fortnite than Sony has made on every first party game they've ever made, I would assume. Profit.
Because you're talking per year, right? Fortnite is 6 billion, 7 billion.
Right, exactly. Compounded over 5 or 6 years, that's the cumulatively more than Sony has ever made on there.
I would say if you're Tim Sweeney and when he dies, they should examine his brain because the amount of money that person makes, it has to affect physiological brain tissue because it's just like, you don't live in the world with everyone else. You have a totally different set of rules. I mean, a lot of billionaires are that way, but it's staggering the money Epic makes and certainly staggering the money that Fortnite makes. And my guess is that Cliffy B's on permanent, suicide watch because he's just like, I mean, he made a lot of fucking money, but god damn, he must be like, God, I should have stayed for 2 more years.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it sucks, but that is frustrating, but I got to talk to him.
But he did pretty well. I don't think Cliff's complaining. He's off to the races. He just put out his first comic book.
Weren't the three of us going to try to do a podcast at some point? Then that kind of fell off. I got to talk to him. I haven't talked to him in a while. And get him on the show. I talked to him a couple of weeks ago, about 2 months ago. We did a Gears of War retrospective book club. It was great. He's awesome. And his new comic just came out called Scrapper, which is his new IP. Oh, cool. He wants to do video games with it and all this stuff. So he'd be good to talk to. Yeah, I got to get in touch with him because I want to read his book as well, which I haven't. It's great. I have it. It's a surprisingly good read. It's one of those things that you're like, is this going to be good? Or is this going to be some stupid, poorly written? It's really compelling. Yeah. And he gets into some deep shit. I mean, he talks about being molested as a child. And I'm like, oh, where did this come from? But the way he realized he had been molested has to do with video games and E3. And it's quite the read. I highly recommend it. Yeah, I'm going to have to check that out. Shout out to Cliffy B. Yeah, I'll email him in the coming weeks. But we gather here with 4 different topics. My topic is deeply political, and thus I will bury it at the end of the show so people can skip it if they'd like. And so, Dig, since you weren't on last week, let's start with you. I mean, we haven't seen your face in quite some time around these parts. And so let's begin with your topic. I think it's an interesting one. I want to see what you have to say about it because you say in your parentheses here in your email, got a fun story for you.
Oh yeah. I hope you guys find it fun.
Yeah.
Well,
Pressure's on.
merci.
Yeah.
Just got back from Quebec.
Right.
Just got back from Quebec.
Did you, Dagan and I both had the same French teacher for years because she was at the high school we were both at, Mrs. Girard.
Madame Girard.
Madame Girard. Did you channel Madame Girard?
I was thinking about her constantly because she used to actually not curse at me, but
I
she
was
used
fucking my wife, and it's like, oh, Madame Girard, come on, baby, take it home.
we had her for 4 years of high school French, but my core memory of her is her yelling at me in French in the parking lot of the high school for not wearing a helmet when I was skateboarding.
And what's fun is you're like, I don't know what you're saying. She got so mad.
I know I'm supposed to know this, but I just don't. Yeah, and also staggering that I think Helene and I both took 6 or 7 years of French and nothing.
Dude,
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I took French 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 2 years in college.
Oh, you took it in college too.
And I guess I know it better than I let on, but I really don't know it in any sufficient way at all. Like I really think about Miss Girard, right? We used to bust her balls. Everyone would bust her balls. Imagine teaching French at Bellport High School.
Yeah, she was from Paris.
Pain and misery. How did you end up here on Long Island? In one of the worst school districts on the entire island.
It's
Why not just wear a sign that says I'm an alcoholic? Why not just wear a sign?
We had those at Bellport High School too, no doubt. But Dave, I'm interrupting you. Go on.
Absolutely. But listen, Quebec, I'm very impressed because almost everybody we dealt with, from like hotel staff to, waiters and waitresses in restaurants, clerks, bilingual. Like they spoke excellent English, and of course they're fluent in French. Almost to a person. It kind of sends you back to the States being a little embarrassed of largely our culture, right? Where you maybe start learning a language, and when you're well outside of that sponge age, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, it doesn't stick. We all have the same, not all of us, but many of us have the same experience. So, but it's not just nice to be home. Quebec was lovely. Quebec City specifically was really nice, but it's nice to be back. So, I thought about this.
If I may interrupt, they are financially incentivized to speak English, right? Because they get better tips. It's a huge tourist economy.
Tourism.
I wouldn't want to paint it as some noble thing. I'm sure if Americans were financially incentivized to do things like that, we probably would too.
Yeah, we just don't care, I guess.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. Yeah, no, Dave, go on, please.
No, but what was interesting about that? Jaffe makes a good point, but we didn't see that many American tourists there. It was a lot of Canadians. There was a lot of people from the Toronto area, I think, Ottawa, but there were a lot of French-speaking tourists. And I took it as this is a lot of people from an hour or 2 or 3 outside of the city or outside of the cities that come in like we go into New York, right? We don't go we go see a Broadway show. We go see a ball game. I think it was a lot of that. So I was actually surprised when I saw one guy. I was wearing a Philadelphia t-shirt one day. We were out for 12 hours. One guy was like, yo, Philly or whatever. That was the only interaction I really had with any other Americans for 4 or 5 days. So that was interesting. But definitely they're on a huge tourist economy, and it does behoove them to know it. But you could tell they're not starting to learn English in 7th grade. They're way too fluent. This is a lifelong thing where they make strides to learn both.
You'll find it interesting that the Montreal Canadiens' old coach, I think it was 2 coaches ago now, didn't speak French, and this was very controversial that they hired him because they usually conduct their press conferences in French.
Oh shit!
And so it does cut both ways. I think to Jaffe's point too, where they were like, I think he got fired pretty quickly after a couple of years because it was like he was not one of them. Because Quebec,
I could see
you'll
that.
Probably know this. Quebec has a secession, like a pretty huge secession movement. Like they almost voted to leave Canada, I think twice, right?
Oh,
this
wow.
happened. Yeah. Like they like are total. What's that place in Spain? Why can I never think of it? Catalonia.
Oh,
where it's kind of like they want to leave, but they really kind of can't. And they have their own language and they have their own traditions and all that. It's kind of Quebec and they're just stuck in there.
It's their Texas.
Yeah, exactly. Because like that's the remnant of French. Like after the French and Indian War, that was kind of the last piece of the old fur trade area and all, the thing, the Canadian, their French were here really early in Canada and New England and all that. So along with the British. So it's just a legacy of that, which is so interesting. So they still speak French, which makes a little bit of sense. But if that war went different, Canada would be a very different place too. Go on.
Yeah.
Nick, I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's interesting. It was a really interesting experience, a really interesting place. And actually this will speak to my lack of traveling abroad. It's the first time I've gone anywhere where English was not the native language. Because I've very rarely been out of the country. When I have, I've gone to places like the United States Virgin Islands and the Caribbean and stuff like that, where it's all English speaking. So just luck of the draw, was that. So that was interesting. It was an interesting week.
Can I just really quickly tangent about, well, first off, Japan will fuck you up because Japan doesn't give a fuck about you. They're just like, good luck navigating the goddamn train station. But I don't know if you saw this. There were some students at Stanford. I'm sure Google's been working on this forever, but they actually released a video, and it's I do. It's a little clip-on that goes on glasses. Even if you don't wear glasses, you can just have non-corrective lenses, and it translates. So it's not like AR, like where you need a phone and a battery and all this shit. It's just this little thing that does real-time closed caption and real-time translation. Wow. So if you're hard of hearing, it's great just to wear. And if I was having this conversation with you guys in the real world, I would see it like on a show down here. But if I go to Japan now and I'm like, hey man, where can I find American pizza? Whatever, I don't fucking know where, it'll tell me what they're saying. There's like a 2-second delay, but I mean, we're about done.
Wow.
With the Tower of Babel. It's incredible.
That really is
incredible. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah,
so you're back and you faked it till you made it.
So here we go. Fake it till you make it, my friend.
Yeah.
So I thought about this topic a couple of weeks ago. And I thought it'd be, an interesting one to toss around to you guys, right? So, and I want to know what each of your experiences with this old notion. Many of us know this whole fake it till you make it thing. And I was thinking about this because this is one that comes up. It applies pretty often in my life. I just did a job, an animation job that I knew was going to be about a month-long gig. The producer reached out to me and said, "We got this thing. Are you interested?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't want to turn this down. This sounds like a pretty nice little job." So, but I knew it was going to be in an animation software that I'm not that prolific with. I'm not an expert in it, but I figured, you know what? I could probably give it a shot. I know enough, I think, to get by. So that whole fake it till you make it thing. And I did the job. We just finished it right before I left for vacation. It went well. And it was a nice sort of culmination of the director being a little more patient, me putting in a little extra elbow grease and working a little extra hard and being pleasant to work with and everything kind of dovetailed and it worked out. And I actually walked away, over that month learning a lot. I came away knowing a little more about that software. So it all worked out, got paid, project got done on time. Beautiful. But I was laughing to myself because there was one time early in my career where I did the whole fake it till you make it thing, sort of put my best foot forward, and it just did not go well. This is when fake it till you make it just goes south, it goes the opposite way you think it's going to go. And I'll tell you guys about it. So I was working in animation probably at the time, maybe 3 or 4 years. I was still pretty green. And I came out of school in 98. So, and I was on a very traditional 2D animation track, right? So fortunately, when we came out of school, my generation came out of art school, we jumped right into the .com boom when all the companies and all the corporations were starting to make websites. Having a web presence was starting to become everything. And especially in the children's media space, that meant online games and online content to watch, online shows, cartoons for kids that were not only on TV now, but on the computer. So we jumped into a whole new avenue of employment, especially 2D animators. And the .com boom was a huge thing for us. And we jumped right into it, kind of applied our digital skills and our traditional skills, and were able to get jobs. And it was really a nice period of time, probably from somewhere in 98, I would say, until around 9/11. I think some people would argue that 9/11 wasn't the .com bubble bursting, but I think, from my experience, especially in New York on the East Coast, 9/11 sort of is the thing that made the .com thing implode. And that's when it sort of ended and everybody was kind of kicked to the curb. A lot of the companies went out of business. And, you got to remember, this was a time where all the major media companies, like let's say DreamWorks, Universal at the time, Paramount, Disney, everybody kind of had a lot invested in the .com online thing. So I remember guys like Ron Howard and Steven Spielberg and Chuck Jones and Tim Burton and Danny Elfman, like all these guys had huge sort of, I guess sort of like they all had companies that were sort of divested from their core companies, and they were doing things like DreamWorks had Icebox.com and stuff. There was a lot of money, millions and millions of dollars. And when that went south, a lot of us sort of became unemployed. And I was kind of struggling at the time. This was right before, maybe I was engaged, but we weren't married yet. So I didn't really know what to do. And I was kind of zigging and zagging, looking for work. How can I kind of reinvent myself? And there was I won't name names, but there was a independent snack company located on Long Island. It's still a big company to this day. If I give you guys enough time to think about it, if you research it for 30 seconds, you'll find out who it is. There is a Curb Your Enthusiasm episode based around this company as well. Maybe that's too much.
Fuck! Just tell. Now I'll be back, fellas, because I'm gonna go do this now.
I won't name names, but I'll tell you everything else except for that.
I'll tell you everything. So you just about know it now, right? So what happened was I had a friend who worked at this company, and we knew each other from
Little Debbie.
Who was it?
Was it Little Debbie?
No.
What the fuck? What? Oh,
No.
You're gonna. I'm sorry. Fine.
Still
my
big.
best to,
Even bigger today.
Colin, do you know what it is?
I don't know. Why won't you just say it?
I guess I could say it.
Yeah.
Right? Because I
think I know what you're talking about, but I don't want to put words in your mouth.
It was back then, it was called Robert's Gourmet, but I think everybody knows it as for Pirate's Booty.
That's the best ever.
That's the company.
Oh, that's the Trader Joe's crack. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
And they're an interesting company because
that's actually not
they
the company
still
I thought
have
you
that
were going to say, by the way.
They're not, they're not Frito-Lay. They're not this giant Lay's potato chips. They're not this giant thing, but they are a giant, right? You go into any 7-Eleven, any supermarket chain,
man.
they're on the shelf.
Constellation is brought to you by Factor. Somehow the busy fall season is nearly here, and you might be looking for some wholesome, convenient meals for jam-packed days. Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit, can help you fuel up fast with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time, eat well, and stay on track with your healthy lifestyle. This fall is going to be crazy for me with a trip in September and 2 trips in October, and sometimes with all the going in and out of the house, it's hard to make it out to the grocery store. I love Factor because I can skip the grocery store when I need to and get rid of all of the prepping and cleaning up of cooking and still get some awesome meals that are nutritional as well. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are ready in just 2 minutes. So all you have to do is heat and enjoy and then get back to it. Plus, you can round out your meal and replenish your snack supply with an assortment of 45 plus items, including breakfast items like apple cinnamon pancakes, bacon and cheddar egg bites, and more. This August, get Factor and enjoy eating well without the hassle. Simply choose your meals and enjoy fresh, flavor-packed meals delivered to your door, ready to go in just 2 minutes with no prep and no mess. Head to factormeals.com/con50 and use code CON50 to get 50% off. That's code CON50 at factormeals.com/con50 to get 50% off.
And they were really establishing their niche even back then in the early 2000s, but now they're massive. And they were located on Long Island, not far from where I was living. It so happened that I knew a guy that worked there. And he was like, they're looking for people to sort of rebrand the entire thing. Like they want to modernize the image, the graphic design in general, the characters, the mascots. They want to bring in like a really hip sort of, I guess, then Cartoon Network-y sensibility, Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's Lab, that type of thing. So I was a perfect fit for that. So I said, oh, that sounds great. And they want to kind of, now they're establishing their website. They want to do online games for kids and maybe some, cartoon content with these new redesigned characters. Would you be interested? And I said, yeah, that sounds amazing. Talk to the guy there, talk to the owner of the company. I actually forgot about that. Because they were small enough back then, maybe they were a 20-person operation at that time. Went in, talked to them. Interview went really well. When can you start? Okay, next week. Great, perfect. This is going to be wonderful. But the thing was that I knew that they had mentioned in the interview was that web design and keeping the website refreshed and updated and sort of the technical end that I wasn't familiar with was going to be part of the job. So not only were you going to be designing characters and doing some animation and stuff like that, but you're going to have to know whatever it was back then, the HTML, the Dreamweaver stuff, whatever, in order to basically keep the website up and running, refreshed, modernized, new content every day or every couple of days, whatever it was. And I said, okay, that's the part I'm going to have to fake. And, I'll kind of learn as I go. And hopefully it's more of the art side and less of the tech side. So going in, fingers crossed, get in there. First day, they're like, okay, this is this. We got to kind of update the website. We're modernizing the colors. We got some new products we want to kind of put out there and advertise. So you got to do this. I think they had literally their art team was like the art director and like one grunt at that point. And I was coming in order to be like a third person. So I'm like, okay, this is not boding well because I'm not seeing much design. They're not asking me to design characters and animate things and do the things I'm used to. Maybe this is just the first day. Second day, same thing. Art director's like, all right, we gotta work on all this. We got to get everything in place because the website's got to refresh and we got to go live with it tomorrow morning, whatever that was going to be, a Wednesday. And I'm kind of zigging and zagging. I don't really know what to do. I'm sort of faking it, sort of placating him. But at that point, I could kind of realize, even as he's looking over my shoulder, that he kind of knows that I don't know what I'm doing, but he's trying to be polite. So at this point, I'm panicking, but I'm trying not to show it. And I get through the day. Okay, bye. See you tomorrow. I think I started on a Wednesday, and now we're going in from a Thursday into a Friday. So Friday was going to be my third day. So instead of going straight home, at that point, I go to Barnes & Noble and pick up a book on Dreamweaver because I don't know what to do. And I'm just, all right, let me do Dreamweaver for Dummies type thing and see if I could just glean enough knowledge to just get by until the weekend. Then I could really hit the books for like 48 hours, come in on Monday, maybe with a head of steam, and I could pull this off. So I go home, I read the book. It's kind of foreign to me. This is a language I don't speak, right? It's web design. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm an artist. So I go in the next day. I'm kind of fearful and I'm kind of hoping at that point that they change gears and I could kind of sell it like, okay, you have this Pirate's Booty character. It's kind of, this artwork is pretty mid, right? Let's modernize it. Let's jazz it up. Let me kind of show off really my skill set and kind of sell myself. But they're coming in hard with, we got to update the website. It's got to be up and running by the weekend. It's really important because we're not going to be back in the office till Monday morning, that type of thing. And at that point, I'm just like, all right, like you're exposed. You don't know what you're doing. This is what they need. It was kind of their fault because they sold the job. I think they were selling the job a little too much on the art side. And I don't think that was going to be, maybe that was going to be a very small percentage of this job. Maybe it was going to be 10%. And they were selling it like it was going to be a 50-50 type of deal. But this is really what they needed at the time. And again, they were a small mom and pop operation at that point. And I guess there wasn't a lot of money to throw around and they had work to do and they had to get it done. So I remember that day is getting towards the end of the day and the art director called me in and he was like, dude, we need this. You obviously really don't know what you're doing. So we got to let you go. And I was fired. And they gave me my check for whatever it was, 2.5 days, 3 days. And they said goodbye. And it was like it was a crazy thing because the guy, you could tell the guy maybe never fired anyone before, was in that position to have to let somebody go. And I think he just wanted to get it done quickly and he didn't want it to get emotional on either side. So he was very cold about it. And I remember feeling in that moment really angry, but what was I going to do? And also knowing in that situation too, I guess inherently that I was in the wrong. Right. So that experience always gave me pause with the fake it till you make it thing, because I think that's the thing I still would recommend fake it till you make it in general, because oftentimes it works out. But that was just that experience, that specific situation was just a bridge too far. I couldn't fake it enough to do a completely different job, essentially. Right? Now, what I did recently was just applying all my animation knowledge to a different software that I kind of knew anyway. I knew well enough to get by. That's one thing. But that fake it till you make it situation was interesting because it's the only time I've ever been fired from a job. And it was really kind of a false bill of sales on both sides. I was kind of selling myself as a thing I wasn't. And they were selling the job as something that it necessarily wasn't, which I thought was interesting too, because I think it's much more common to find a web designer than somebody who's an animator, which is kind of rarefied air a little bit. That's a very specialized thing. I think web design, even at that point, was becoming more like graphic design. Every company had something in terms of an art department, graphic design, that's marketing, that sort of thing. So that was a really interesting experience for me. And I actually swore off all Pirates Booty food for like 10 years. I wouldn't let my family buy it. I was like, no, you can't have that, until I realized, dude, it was kind of your bad too. So, all right, let me throw it over to you guys for fake it till you make it. And I want, maybe a story that went well, maybe a story that went bad. Jaffe, what do you think?
Well, first I'm in shock because forever I always thought fake it till you make it was what women did when they faked orgasm until they got pregnant. And then it's like, oh, I made the baby. I don't want to fuck this guy anymore. I just want the baby and the child support. That's a different thing. I was prepared for a totally different conversation. But, yeah. What do I think? Well, shame on you for not appreciating Pirate Booty back in the day because it's brilliant. But so fake it till you make it's a fun thing to say, and I think it and I think you guys have talked about this before. I think it dovetails nicely into the concept of imposter syndrome, right? Because they're very close cousins, and I think I have had plenty of times where I have absolutely had no idea what I was doing, which led to imposter syndrome. But I always would put myself in situations though that I knew the germ of the ability was there. I may not have had the specifics or the passion to do the job was there, but I may not have understood the specifics, like game design. Right. I mean, I was designing. It was a nightmare. I was talking to Colin and Gene Park about this the other day on the Twisted Metal show when we were doing like Twisted Metal. But before that, even Mickey Mania, me and my design partner were pariahs at the office because they're such pain in the asses. And it's because we didn't know what we were doing. But under all that was a sense of confidence about we knew what we wanted it to be. We just didn't know how to get there. And in those cases, I think fake it till you make it can work. But I think what you're talking about is so, that's almost like fake it till you make it. And they drop you into, an architecture firm and and you usually drive trucks for work. And you're like, you had no chance in that case. So I just hear it and go, yeah, what the fuck? That means I think everybody was guilty in your case, but I don't, not really. I anything I've ever faked has been because I knew deep down what I wanted. I just didn't know how to get there. And my ability to sell and talk and articulate enough to sort of bring in people that would believe in me enough to get me the help I needed, was there. I guess fake it till you make it to me I was a bad CEO, like of Bartlett Jones, my last company, or a co-CEO of Eat, Sleep, Play, because I always thought it would be fun to be that role. And it's like people just bring you their problems and you sit there and it's like, I know what I'll do. Let's have shipping start in Michigan, whatever the fuck CEOs do all day. And I really didn't enjoy it. So I was kind of faking it. And then it's like, why the fuck did I ever say I was going to be the CEO of these companies? I don't know. That's just, I thought what you did. I just, but I had no aptitude for it. And so even though I did try to fake it, there was nothing there. There was no pot to piss in. I just collapsed. Right. So, that's my take on fake it till you make it.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, that's you remind me of something though, Jaffe.
Of the babe?
What babe?
That could have went really wrong for me because this was my first fake it till you make it experience. So it's something that could have really made me gun shy for the next time. Right. But again, it was just so extreme. But I like what the point you bring up about passion and and confidence. Those two things. If you have those two things, I think oftentimes, because then it's about selling it, right? It's about it, like you say, it's really about selling it and knowing inherently that you could do it or you could learn it or surround yourself with people that could help you provide assistance in some way.
If you've got an eye on the North Star, I think that'll do a lot. And that's where fake it till you make it, unless you're an airline pilot, works pretty well.
Yeah, that could have been. That would have been bad. That would have been bad.
Yeah,
let me. Oh, Kyle, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
I was just gonna express. We can go to Ben. I was just gonna express my disappointment that I taught myself how to build websites in like 1997 in raw HTML text, and I would upload them via like FTP systems, and you would name them like index.html, and that would be the website, and then you'd have to do all these like manual slashing or whatever. But pre-CMS. And I worked for a website where we had a bespoke CMS, like a unique CMS. I'm using that word a lot lately. And then a CMS, like we went to WordPress later on. I wonder what you probably don't remember, but I do wonder what the situation is where you couldn't fake doing some basic stuff on like a template. Like I'm a little disappointed in you that you didn't figure it out.
Yeah, you know what it was?
Like it's not. It was.
Why
in other words,
just call Colin.
In other words, you probably could have at
serious.
the time. And I'm surprised by that because I don't know. It's not, I don't want to say it's not that complicated. It is complicated, but if you could just figure out what's on the screen, that's how I learned HTML, is like taking a screen and then looking at the text and just figuring out why things were the way they were and tracking it that way.
See, I think that was even harder. I think that was even more difficult, Kyle. I think, and web designers out there are going to yell at me because I have to put this in real layman's terms. I don't really have any knowledge of the side of things, but when Adobe back then, Macromedia Flash came out, it was an all-in-one package for graphics, animation, and web design. And that was the allure. Now, animators, 2D animation adopted that program, and now it's Adobe under Adobe's umbrella, and it's called Animate, and there's other better 2D software now, but we leveraged it for television animation. But it was sort of conceptualized and created for web design. And it was supposed to be this package where you could do everything all in this one program, or I guess with its sister program, which then was Dreamweaver, I think. And it was a very specific new thing that was supposed to be evolved from the typical HTML, sort of more primitive, I guess, web design, where I guess it was easy enough, but maybe I just couldn't leverage that side of my brain. But you know what? The other thing I realized when enough time had passed and I was a little less crestfallen about being fired was that I wouldn't have liked that job anyway. That's the thing. I wouldn't have been happy there. I wasn't creating characters or animating or drawing storyboards or doing anything fun. I would have been, updating websites all day long and maybe working with a font or something.
It's brutal. I wouldn't want to do that. Anyway,
isn't it crazy now though that all you have to do is take a picture of a napkin and tell ChatGPT and it'll make you a functional. I mean, I've done it. It's nuts.
Dude, it's nuts. I told this story somewhere before, but IGN's proprietary backend was so intertwined with the website in ways that would break it and fuck it up that it took them years and years and tens of millions of dollars to move it from that thing. It was literally called, I've said it before, Network in a Box, NIB or NIAB. And it was this thing made by a guy named Frank that worked at the company in the 90s. And
oh, wow.
And then he left. And I remember having this meeting once where they were saying it's like a rubber band ball where like every rubber band is around it and you can't do anything about the rubber bands in the middle without undoing all of these other things. And when they finally started untearing it and moving over to WordPress, that broke so many things on the site. People will remember that back in the day. It was like nightmarish. So I totally get what you're saying. I know that era very well because it's you're right, Jaffe. It's so easy and simplistic now. I remember we were so surprised by how easy WordPress was when we got it. In like 2013, we were like, this is insane because of the things we used to have to do.
Yeah.
When I used to write strategy guides, they were sometimes 400 or 500 clickable pages that I wrote all in like HTML, right? And like all these things, you had to upload it to like one field and then it would appear and you'd have to individually press publish page, and then pop-ups would come. Like that's how the whole thing worked. It was horrifying.
And then you've got the cell phones and the screens and the tablets, and now it handles it on its own.
It's amazing.
But there was a time where you had to be like, okay, now you've got to make sure the page works for every single fucking device it could be on. It's like, oh, fuck off.
Crazy.
And now what's so funny is that people don't even care about websites really anymore. I mean, it's not really a thing, you know? So that was just
it's going to be a charming nostalgia trip for kids of like the early 2000s to go back and go, remember the Polar Express website where the train went around, you could click and Tom Hanks would say things. I mean, that's got to be a nostalgia touchstone for that generation because they were cool. I loved going to websites, man.
Hell yeah. Yeah.
Ben, I interrupted Dagan kicking it to you, so let's go to you now.
That's all right. I guess I have a little bit more of a success story with Fake It Till You Make It, but not a very important one. So the preamble to this is that like in 2009 through probably 2012, I had a website and a podcast with a buddy of mine, and we ended up like there was less competition at the time. It was gaming related. It was less competition at the time, and of course, I think we did a decent job, and we were making like pretty decent money, and nothing that we ever like thought at that point. We thought like, oh, maybe this could actually be something because it was before I realized that most traditional games media is gone by the wayside. But at the time we were making like decent money. And then he ended up getting a job with a company that had a non-compete clause. So he folded his part in. And then a couple years later, I got married, had a kid, started doing my master's, all that kind of stuff. So eventually we just shut it down, sold the website. They turned it into a gambling website. Of course, they just bought it for the domain, I think. But regardless, a couple of years later, I was hanging out, I had just become friends with Dustin, and I was like, hey, we should go to PAX, because I knew he liked games, I like games. We both had some interest, at least in the past, in games media. And he was like, yeah, well, I've actually got this podcast with my buddy, and we want to do a website, and maybe you could help out with that. And I was like, I don't know about all that, but let's just go to PAX. So by the time PAX ended, I was like, all right, let's do it. And to my surprise, 5 or 6 years later, it wasn't as easy anymore. And maybe it was never easy. Maybe we just had a good stroke of luck at the time, in my previous time. But I was like, okay, well, let's look at the numbers. And I looked at the website, and I'm like, okay, we had 1 view this month. What'd you get me into? Let's look at the podcast. Okay, 25 lifetime downloads. Okay, it wasn't really that bad, but I'm exaggerating. But it was low, and I was like, okay. So we all worked together. We got some buddies. Again, we were just trying to do this for some fun, maybe some inroads into the industry, not really trying to make a career out of it or anything. And so I basically just started acting like I had acted, a few years prior when we were successful. I had all these, not all these, a couple press contacts still that I was, friendly with. And so that, of course, is helpful. But for the most part, I was just like, okay, well, we're not a hobbyist site. We're going to be a site. We're going to be a podcast. And so we started going to shows, and all of us working together. There were 5 or 6 or 7 of us in the first year. And basically, if we were going to go to try to meet with somebody about seeing a game at a show, very formal, set up a scheduler, probably overdoing it, quite honestly, and just completely acting as if this was totally normal. We were acting, very professional, not acting as if we were just like some guys who wanted free games, even though ultimately, you know, I mean, we wanted the writing experience, the video experience. We wanted the free games too. We wanted to be able to go to these shows, meet cool people, that kind of thing. So eventually it got to the point where pretty much, you know, any event we wanted to go to, with very limited exceptions, we could get an invite to. I remember one time Oculus invited us to one of their events, and we were like, oh, they must be inviting everybody. And we get there, and they're like there to pick us up in an Escalade.
Wow.
And we're like, well, they probably picked up everybody in an Escalade. No big deal. And we get there, and there's like IGN, Polygon, one big VR website that I can't remember the name of, and us. And I'm like, so when does it start? They're like, oh, it's starting now. Like, this is the whole crew. And I was like, so we were one of 4 outlets invited to come. Like,
wow,
whatever. I don't know. But it was just like very much like we held ourselves with a lot of, you know, dignity and respect and professionalism, and always followed up with like coverage. And I'm like, we're getting invited to things, getting pretty much any game we requested. And I'm like looking at some of these other bigger outlets and bigger YouTubers, and they're like, oh, I didn't get a code for this or whatever. And I'm like, you got 1,000 times the numbers we have. Like, what's going on here? And I mean, we were growing and we did better, and we were making, you know, ad revenue from everything. But again, that was never really the point for us. The point was to have fun and develop some skills and make some connections and stuff like that. So I would say overall, it was a fake it till you make it. Like, we literally would go to these press conferences or to like meetings with execs and be like, before we walked in, like, okay, remember, fake it till we make it. Like, that was actually our line, was always just like, let's just fake it till we make it. And that all went really well. I had a lot of good fun. Once I started working with LSM, I lost about 80% of my press contacts, but that's okay because I don't have time to do as much with it anymore anyway. But the 20% who are still around I very much respect them because they stuck around. So, and 80% is probably an exaggeration, but you know, a lot of people just, they have to go with the flow and feed into the corporate, or not the corporate, but the prevailing theories. And I really give the people who didn't much more respect because of that.
I feel bad that affects some people around us. I know that's affected Maddie a little bit too. People that but like, I don't give a shit because I don't want anyone's codes.
Right.
You know, so the person who, like, it's sad that there's any sort of effect on others, because that was not. Yeah. That's obviously not the intent.
Yeah, no, but that is a nice vetting, though. Like Ben's saying, that's a nice vetting of the companies that you would still want to deal with. You know, when everything falls by the wayside, the ones that remain standing.
Yeah, is there a common thread amongst the ones who've stayed behind? That you're like, I get why they stayed.
The ones who stayed behind, a couple of them I know have been listeners, and a couple of them are just like, we like your opinion. You've always been good to us. I actually had one guy specifically, I talked to him like right before I started working with Colin. Actually, it might have been after, but it was before I like put it on Twitter or something. And Dustin had been working for Colin for like a year before that, but because I was like the intermediary, I was the person contacting everybody, and like I was our person. That's, everybody knew who I was and followed me, which Dustin was like, everybody knows you and not me. And I was like, it's okay, dude. Like, you're making the stuff we want to make. And I was like, I don't really care about these people knowing me. I would rather they know you. And now they all know him and not me. So that's fine. But there was one guy who was like, yeah, you guys do really great work. I got a train going through here. You can take it away from it. It will be very loud.
Why are you running?
What was that? What
was that?
I'm gonna edit that out, but it was.
What was this?
It's something I use for streaming when I'm streaming. It's the clip that the guy's like, "Why are you running?"
You better not edit that out.
Okay, I won't edit it out. Okay, the train's gone actually now, I think, but it's very loud. I hit the wrong button. I did the Jaffe thing and pushed.
That was the Phantom train from Final Fantasy VI.
The train is like it's very close to my house, but it's also like in a valley. But anyway, Jaffe, the common thread.
Do you guys have like hobos in your town with little sacks and
no, we don't
get out and jump the train and stuff?
We don't. We have hobos, but they don't have little sacks. I mean, they might have little sacks. I don't know.
There's a business there. There's a Kickstarter there. Hobo sacks.
All right. Well, I won't edit that out.
Can you imagine that? It doesn't matter. But listen, that would be big. I bet kids, like, you could sell middle schoolers on hobo sacks instead of backpacks.
I'm not selling middle schoolers on hobo sacks, Jaffe.
Huh?
That's illegal.
Hobo sex?
Getting middle schoolers to have hobo sex? That's illegal.
Oh, hobo sex.
Hobo sex?
Oh, no. I meant the musical instrument, the hobo sax. Anyway, sorry.
It's all right.
Go ahead.
Nice.
I very much the train literally derailed us, no pun intended. But
Ooh, that's good.
The common thread, though, I think, is just that people who care more about having good coverage for things than they do about winning status points. I remember one particular person I was saying before I started working with Colin that was like, you know, I said to him, like, hey, I really appreciate you're always helping us out. Like, we don't have the biggest numbers. We do okay. But he's like, look, I would rather have somebody who writes a fantastic review that gets one person to buy the game than give it to, you know, a site that gets 50,000 clicks in an hour on one article, but they have no passion in it. I was like, that's awesome. And like within a week, he just totally cut off conversation with me because he found he doesn't like Colin. And nothing substantial or founded. And there's a common thread within the people who did cut off. Like the people who did cut off, they all have like one person in common, which I won't name on the show, but I'll tell you guys later. And at least Colin and Jaffe will know who it is. But anyway, I'm not upset about it. It doesn't. I always seem to make time for things that I want to do, but now that I don't do it as much, I mean, we still do the podcast and we get, you know, some video up here and there, but for the most part, it was good. It made connections.
Did you ever hear of the amazing Randy?
No.
He was this famous debunker. He's dead now. There's a great documentary on him.
He was the guy that went after Keller, right?
That's right. Right. Uri Geller.
Uri Geller. Right.
And he would offer a check for $1 million to anyone that could prove evidence of the supernatural. And even now he's dead, I think his estate carries on the, you know, because obviously no one has been able to prove it. And I think there should be something similar to people who go after Colin. It's like, look, $1 million. What are you bothered by? What has he done? And I would just, I'm not paying it, but somebody should pay it. Because I'm just like, what are you complaining about?
Yeah, it's a game of telephone at this point. The one thing I will say about just that generally is that from my perspective, the gaming clique is broken. Like it's something Gene and I talk about a lot on the shows themselves, because Gene took like some blowback when he started doing Punching Up, and he's like, I don't care. Like, what are you going to do for me? Like, first of all, this person gave me opportunities you couldn't give me. And second of all, we're friends. And third of all, you have no insight into any of this. And you also it's not fucking 2008, but no one cares about you, you know? Right. And that's what I think has kind of fed the machine a little bit. And I know this from some people that I'm friendly with inside over the years, is that like, it bothers some people that it hasn't hurt me. Like, or that like, they didn't snuff me out. Yeah, that really does bother some people, like that I actually became more successful by leaning into it. And like I've said in the past on the episode we did with Cog, it's like I didn't want to be cut off at first. I just leaned into it and embraced it. And then it was like, well, this actually works. And it removed so much stress from my life, not having to deal with those people anymore. They're some good people, of course, but they're using you, you know, and it's a transactional relationship, as you see, and once they think they can't get anything from you anymore, they're just not interested.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So this is an interesting question, Dave, because I wrote my notes, like what came to mind for me was this kind of boils down to knowing what you don't know and then not knowing what you don't know. And I think one of the interesting things I realized was when I got into the games industry, I don't think I was faking it. I thought that I knew a lot more than I did. And I started as a forums kid in the 90s and like wrote on GameFAQs, and that's how I became, you know, internet famous, in quotes, you know, D-list internet famous, and ended up at IGN and all of that stuff. But the more I was there and the more I was immersed in video games as a culture and video games as a business and a hobby and all the rest, just in the ether, I was like, wow, I didn't understand fucking anything about this when I got hired here. You know, I thought I did. I went in with great confidence. I got hired. I mean, it worked out great. I wrote for them for years before I even became an editor, but I was a technical writer. They would give me a game usually before it came out and be like, write the strategy guide for it. And that's what I would do. And that's a very specific skill set that was awesome and got me into the industry. But as I became a journalist, in quotes, I went to college for American history. I have no journalism degree or no journalism background at all. I had no idea what I was supposed to do. I think I just kind of went along with the flow in terms of kind of following people around me. I'm really into the news and into politics, and I think that informed me a lot about what I think I was supposed to do: go after power centers, reveal stories that are uncomfortable and inconvenient, do that kind of stuff. And so I leaned into that. But I just realized now that if I grilled Colin when he was 20 or 22 when he was getting in, I would have been like, you don't know fucking anything, you know? And it's almost lucky that no one did that to me. And I wonder, because I can sniff out fakes now and I've said that before, like in that the Jaffe and I have talked deeply about the fanboys on social media and stuff, like, you know, they hide their achievements and their trophies and they don't talk about specifics and all these things for very real reasons that they would be very easily exposed. Right. And I can sniff that stuff out now. And again, it wasn't by intent when I was a kid. I really did think I knew everything that I needed to know. I thought I was like, yeah, I get it. I'm a good writer and I understand these things. But the more you're in meeting rooms and a fly on the wall and interviewing people and getting things off the record and seeing how games are made and just understanding how games are made, just visiting studios over and over again and being around them at different points in their creation, as Jaffe would know, that's how I came to know Jaffe, as we talk about all the time during the, you know, his Eat, Sleep, Play days right on through Bartlett.
Yep.
And you would be exposed to these games when they're being QA'd. You'd be exposed to them when they're early in development or even just concepts. And it made me appreciate the depth of knowledge that's really necessary to navigate this industry at a high level, which is why I really think that people that stick around in it for a long time, from my perspective, like the media perspective, so your Jeff Gerstmans, your even people I don't like specifically like Jason Schreier's and stuff, like these people know what they're doing. You wouldn't be able to do it at this level and fake it. And so that's kind of what I wanted to say about the issue. Is I don't think I never went into a situation like yours where I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Right. I went into situations where they're like, you have to learn how to use a CMS you've never used before. And I'm like, I'm going to just have to figure that out. Or I remember being a gopher at E3 when I was an intern, like 2003, 2004. And they'd be like, go to every booth and give them your business card and get, you know, assets. And then Jaffe will remember they would sometimes give you assets on fucking tape, cassettes still. You'd have to.
I don't remember that.
Yeah,
like awesome. Cassette tape,
like small. Yeah, like small. I don't know what the word would be for it. They're not like full VHS tapes, but they're like small things that go in like
a tapes like that. I thought you meant like a cassette tape, like an audio tape. Okay, yeah, I got you.
Right,
yeah,
exactly. And you would have to, and there would be these machines, and I didn't know. And I remember deleting something on accident once, and like screwing something up when it was rendering and all of that. And but you kind of just went with it. It wasn't like I was faking it. I think they knew. It's like, you have the least seniority here. This is the worst thing to possibly be doing right now.
Yeah.
You out of a series of horrible things at E3. Here is what I used to have to go get off screen, which is not even a thing anymore, where you would literally just go and video camera people playing games. You know, like
the B-roll stuff.
B-roll, of course, plugging into every console, and I remember doing that, and so that was about as close as I had to do to fake it. But I was just the intern, so they were just like, you just do all this
but
stuff.
It's interesting hearing everybody's stories and then hearing that negative version. I really do think it's a good adage. Like I was looking it up because it even reminded me, I'd heard this on the West Wing, where one of the characters tells another character, he's quoting from the Bible. He says, act as if ye have faith and faith shall be given to you. And then he says, put it another way, fake it till you make it. Right. So this is a philosophy that has clearly been kind of, been there for a very, very long time for humans. But I think in your case, you almost need a different rhyme, because I think fake it till you make it applies and works when you do have some gas in the tank for what you're faking. But in your case, that wasn't even fake it till you make it. That was just dumb. Right. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, but I mean, it's like you had it wasn't like fake it till you make it. In your case would have been, we want you to come on and we want you to design a whole new suite of characters. But it's not for America. It's we're launching the Pirate Booty and the whole brand of stuff in Ireland. And so you've got to figure out sort of what it is about cartoon characters that connect with the Irish folks that aren't one-to-one with America. That's fake it till you make it, because you don't know shit about that probably.
No.
Maybe you do now.
Yeah, right.
But, but this was like, hey, come do art and, in the meantime, fly the space shuttle. It's got nothing to do with anything. Yeah, so I don't know if you were faking it till you making it. You were just kind of hoping you were flying by your fucking balls, baby. That was different.
That would give me so much anxiety too. Like I just think about I would have so much anxiety in that situation.
Oh, it was hard. I mean, I remember the palpable sort of anxiety, because you're really going in on a wing and a prayer, and the way that was sold to me, that 50-50 divide of it's going to be half art and half technical, or half design and half programming. It was like, let me sell myself on the charms of, I think going in with that optimism of, let me sell myself on the charms of my design, and maybe that'll be enough. And maybe then they'll realize, okay, this guy's a bitchin' character designer. We'll get somebody else to handle the programming,
right,
or we'll hold his hand through it and teach him. And also, I have to say, like, I've really sold myself over the years whenever I did a little fake it till you make it. And again, to Jaffe's point, it was never this drastic. But let's say I had to go in, I had a character design gig, whether it was somewhere where I was in-house or it was a freelance thing. And it was going to be a little outside my wheelhouse. Like, it was going to be a little anime, and I'm a little more on the cartoony side, but I know how to fake it. I know what inspiration to invoke. I know who to call on if I need a little hand and let me subcontract this to you. I can't really get the legs right or something like that. I know how to figure it out. And also just, I find being easy to work with, upbeat, and offering to do a little extra. Like, hey, I don't mind doing a couple of hours on a Saturday. That type of thing. It's who said this? I don't remember what designer said this. He was giving a college commencement speech. I think it was Neil Gaiman. And he was saying and he was talking about specifically for illustration, but you could apply this to freelance in general. He was saying, be three things. Easy to work. It comes down to three things: being easy to work with, doing great work, and delivering the work on time. And any 2 out of 3 of those things is almost 100% going to work out. And if you have 3, God bless you, but most people don't. If you have any 2 of those 3, 100% of the time, you're going to be golden. And I have kind of been able to do that. But with this one, it was just too much. And they, ultimately what it is they call your bluff. That's what it was.
I'll tell you what, he knows what he's talking about, because he was giving a commencement speech on art, and Neil Gaiman's a writer.
Yeah, and he was giving a commencement speech at an art school.
That's bizarre.
Yeah, at University of the Arts in Philly, I think, my wife's alma mater, where she went for her graduate degree too. Yeah, he was saying, like, when it comes to working freelance, those are the 3 qualities. It's those are the 3 things you want to represent, the 3 prongs in the crown: quality, on time, pleasant to work with. And if you're kind of a dick, but you deliver quality work on time, you're golden, right? So that's the type of thing. Yeah, but this was just, and it's always kind of haunted me, because it was a great learning experience and educational, because I realized fake it till you make it is great. And I do believe in it. And I would tell my kids to practice the same thing in life, because what's the worst that could happen? But there is a sort of divide where it's too much. And that was just way.
You guys don't do it in relationships. And I'm not joking. I'm not making a joke, but I think there are people who are like, okay, I'll be in this relationship and I'll be this thing that I'm not. Never apply it to relationships, because unless you're just looking for one night stands, because you'll be miserable.
Yeah, that's a great point.
If it works out, you're going to play this character. Fuck that.
Do any of you guys remember who your commencement speaker was? Because that commencement speaker sounds a lot more logical than my commencement speaker at Northeastern.
Who was yours?
Who was it was like the one laptop or it was like one laptop a person guy.
I remember that.
It was like a movement in like in the mid aughts to like go to.
Was it Michael Dell? Is that who did that?
No, I wish it was Michael Dell. That would have been way more interesting.
That would have been amazing.
No, it was like some random dude. It's like one laptop per child or something like that.
I remember.
And it was like this thing to go into third worlds and provide cheap technology, which is a fine idea. But I remember my mom, who fucking taught at Northeastern and worked there, right? And was at the commencement, even snuck through the commencement line so she can take a special picture with me when I was getting my
Nicholas Negroponte.
Yes, that's the guy.
Negroponte.
Yeah. Okay.
And I was like, and even she was like, "What the fuck does this have to do with anything that we're doing here?" Right? Like, this isn't some random school. We're in TD Bank. We're in the Boston Garden, right? And and I'm sure he's a very accomplished millionaire, but that frustrated me so much, because I remember Allie's commencement speaker, Dagan, I don't know if you remember this, was Bill Cosby. She went to she went to FIT in New York City.
FIT,
Fashion Institute, and that I remember. So she graduated before me, and then when I graduated, I was like, "What the fuck is this?" So Neil Gaiman, that would have made no sense either, but I would have been thrilled.
It's a legendary speech.
We had Art Buchwald. You might have enjoyed that.
Who? I'm sorry. Say it again.
Who's
I missed
that?
it.
Art Buchwald. I think he's some conservative think piece.
Oh, I don't
writer.
even know who
didn't
that
go.
is.
I
Oh,
never even
interesting.
graduated. So yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
I don't
sorry.
know
That was
who
just
mine was.
because I was like, I still resent that I had some shit commencement speaker.
Yeah, that was a bad one.
There's a list of commencement speakers at Northeastern, and I haven't looked recently, but the person before and the person after us were like both great. I don't remember who they were. Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to go watch my own YouTube. I'll watch the Jobs one. That'll be my
Yeah, exactly. It's like, damn,
but they're
dude.
really so, that's a good topic too. They're really so stupid, because it reminds me of when Jeffrey Katzenberg came to USC and, somebody asked him, it's like, what do I need to do to make it in the entertainment industry? And he's just like, whatever I tell you. It's like the people sitting out in this audience that are actually going to achieve in that business, they don't need me to tell you, not because, they're brilliant, but because they're so ambitious and driven that they're going to make their way in however they make their way in. If you're looking for a roadmap, you might get a job in the entertainment industry, but you're not going to be what you think you're going to be, like the next Spielberg or the next Lucas, because those kind of people don't wait around for someone to tell them how, so commencement speeches are really almost like the trapeze from college life to becoming a cubicle rat. It's like, oh, here's the pre-digested, inspiration. I guess I'll do that and go work for the man now. It's bullshit. All things bullshit.
Dude, I'm
Come on, there's some good ones, Jaffe.
I'm not saying the speeches aren't good. I'm saying that it's all such prepackaged horse shit in terms of a product that you pay a college for that it just, I look at it now and I'm just like, okay, inspire me, whatever. Ultimately, give me a job. I got to go make some shit happen for myself. That's the best commencement speech. It's like, don't inspire me with your bullshit, because you're probably going to get knocked off your pedestal. I remember when Will Smith gave this great commencement speech somewhere, and he's talking about, the universe is going to get out of your way if you believe and all this shit. And, that's easy to say when every movie you put out on July 4th makes $1 billion. But the minute you're slapping people on the Oscars and having your wife bring home people she's fucking, well, suddenly maybe not so much. So I just all of that stuff has really, and I have a bad taste in my mouth for the horse shit of people giving life advice other than just sort of just live. And if you like the way they live, maybe you can get some advice like that, but don't fucking chase these fucking, what is it called? Success bias. It's like, they don't know why they succeeded any more than people know why they failed.
Yeah. I see what
it's,
you're saying. Helene read Will Smith's biography and tweeted about finished it and tweeted about how great it was, or I think it was an Instagram movie. And then he slapped Chris Rock about 12 hours later. It was really the worst timing I've ever seen for a social media post.
And then those fucking Hollywood phonies standing up and applauding him for King. Fuck you. Fuck you.
Yeah.
I like Will Smith, but fuck you, you fucking cowards. I hate this.
Yeah, Will Smith. I don't like Will Smith at all
So
anymore.
bad.
But I'm the people who applauded. You just assaulted a guy.
Yeah, that whole thing was
King Richard. Yeah, King Richard was great.
It was very weird.
That was a
By the way, I looked this up just to underline the commencement speech situation at Northeastern before and after. Ready? Some of the people that were leading into my year: Mikhail Gorbachev, Madeleine Albright, Bill Richardson, Christine Whitman, Henry Carmona, who was Leon Panetta, Jeffrey Immelt, who is the CEO of GM, and then of GE rather, and then Nicholas Negroponte, who was my guy, and then Christopher Cox, who is the SEC commissioner, Kenneth Cole, right? Colin Powell,
Janet
Napolitano, David Muir, John F. Kerry. They have him.
John F. Kennedy,
John F. Kerry, Christiane Amanpour. It's like, why did we get that one year? Why did we get that 1 year? I feel like the story behind it is someone canceled or something, or like couldn't come and they had to just get someone. And again, it's no offense.
You're up.
It's just no offense to that man. If you go back to the 90s, it's like Bill Clinton gave the commencement speech while he was president. Why did we get? God damn it.
Who would have been your dream commencement speaker?
I don't know. I never actually really even thought about that. Anyone but the guy we got, probably.
Right,
someone that could have give me some inspiration for something that's now. I remember my dad being really critical of it too, actually. Being like,
that was pretty lame.
All right. Let's Jaffe, I want to go with your second topic, which is your nostalgia topic. And so I'm going to tuck that with my topic at the end so people can know what they're getting into later on. So in the meantime, Ben, we'll get into your
tuck it with your topic.
Yeah, like me and you are going to go last.
I understand.
Yeah,
I understand.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Ben, let's go to you first and get your topic, which will be the second topic of the show.
I wanted to talk about travel, and I don't want to limit it to anything necessarily, but I also don't want it to be insanely broad. So I guess I just want to talk about, like, do you like to travel? And I kind of know the answer for some of you guys. Do you like to travel? What are some of your favorite experiences traveling? When traveling, do you have any like big things that you have a tradition that you must go do? And then also, do you like, what are the things about travel that you hate the most? So just kind of like broadly, just travel. I didn't want to talk about like specifically destinations necessarily or vacations, just like whether it's traveling for work or play or vacation, whatever, the actual travel part of it. And I'll go ahead and start us off. I just I went away for like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or actually it was Saturday, Sunday, Monday this past weekend. My aunt and cousin wanted us to come see them, so we went over for a couple of days and kind of just hung out. But the actual traveling part of it, it's so much different now that I have kids. Because you'd have to stop a little more often sometimes. And my kids are old enough that I don't really have to do that. Pretty much I can let them, play on the Switch or whatever, and they're quiet and fine. But I was thinking about a couple of years ago how it was like really rough. I used to be the kind of traveler who would get in the car and drive for if I was going like far away, 6 hours before I would stop. Now, of course, sometimes you have to stop before that if you really need to. You got to use the bathroom or something. But for the most part, like that was always my goal, is like, let's get 6 hours. And if we need to stop again, we can. And for the most part, most of my trips aren't really much longer than 6 or 8 hours at the very, very longest. But occasionally there'd be one. But I just, I legitimately just hate being in the car for that long. And it's not because of space. It's not because of like, I'm tired of sitting. It's just like, but all the things I could be doing right now, I'm just sitting in a car. And I know, like, I'm doing something that 150 years ago, people their minds would have exploded out of their body. The fact that we can get in a box and move very fast down a paved road. Like, I get it. It's a privilege. Even in some countries, it's still a privilege now to be able to do that. But I just hate being in the car. And as far as planes, like, I don't have any fear of flying. I don't have any problems with being on a plane, whatever. I mean, there are annoyances, sure. But for the most part, I just have realized, like, I hate the actual act of traveling. I like going places. I like seeing new things. I would travel all the time if I could afford it. And if I was able to, but that's just not the case. But I just, like, I hate the actual act of being trapped somewhere that I can't do anything else in. And I don't know if it's because I like to work a lot, and even if I'm not like working like job, but like, I'm going to go out and do something and make sure something gets done around the house or whatever. Or if it's that I have ADHD, I don't know what it is, but that constrains me so much. So I don't know. I wanted to hear what you guys thought about travel. And Dagan, I guess since you just got back from a trip, you can start us off.
Yeah, man, this hits home. Yeah, we just got back from a 1,200 mile road trip together. And yeah, it was almost 600 miles one way from Philly to Quebec City and then back again. And we made, Helene's the big planner. She gets really frustrated with me because she does plan everything. And I kind of get that. But it was a nice road trip because we had a nice kind of break intermittently going up, and then we kind of stopped somewhere going down. So it was kind of 3 trips in one. On our way to Quebec City, we stopped in Lake Placid, upstate New York, for a couple of days. And then on the way down, we stopped in Lake George, upstate New York, for the first time for my family on the way back. So it was really 3 distinctive places that we visited, and it was a lot of fun. But I got to tell you, when you sent this topic, Ben, the first thing I thought about was it's kind of nice to have a spouse or a significant other that compliments you, because I'm very much like Colin. I have 2 personalities when it comes to traveling and leaving home. My first one is I'm very comfortable being home. I like routine. I like the comforts of home. I like my neighborhood. And it occurs to me too, like I like where I live. I'm within 45 minutes from one of the biggest cities in the country, right? But I also happen to live in a very pretty, rural, bucolic place. I'm in spitting distance of farms and vineyards. I can hop in the car and be in New York City in 2 hours. I really like where I am. I like where I live. I like our school district. I like our surroundings. The atmosphere is cool. I'm a big Philly head. I have a lot of pride in the city. So I'm perfectly fine. I'm perfectly satisfied being home. And Helene really likes to travel, and she kind of invokes that side of my personality where I do appreciate traveling. And it's just, I have to get out there. I'm a bad starter. So like with anything, it's like 20 minutes in, I'm like, I'm happy we're doing this, but you got to get me in the car. And, it was really, I think when I think about traveling, especially being a dad and being a husband, it's important for me for 2 reasons. As a family, and this could apply to anybody, whether you have 19 kids or whether it's just 2 people, a husband and wife or boyfriend and girlfriend. I think it's important to go on adventures together, experience new places, new people, experience new locations together. And just, it's basically having these experiences together. I think I could see from my family, and listen, like it's not all roses. The kids are going to fight sometimes. We can't agree what we're going to eat for dinner. Everybody gets grumpy if it's raining, that type of thing. But maybe 85% of it, I could see like it's strengthening us as a family. Like it's something that's, I think, really, it sort of sharpens us, and I think that's the one thing. And I think the other thing I see for travel, especially in my 40s, I don't know if I felt this way when I was younger, but now especially, I think of traveling as like, it's like a vetting of where you want to be. How do you know where you want to end up or where you want to be or what you want to be around if you don't see and experience everything, And you learn a lot about yourself traveling, I think. I appreciate seeing new people and new places, and Lake Placid was very family oriented and beautiful there, nestled in the Adirondacks, and maybe a little more bougie, a little more, there was a little bit more of a higher class clientele, maybe, where Lake George was the opposite. It was very, it was more teenagers and arcades and pizzerias and stuff. And then in the middle of that, for our trip, we had Quebec City, which has a very European vibe. Honestly, it felt a lot like a more European Boston to me. It had the waterfront on the river there and everything. It was really beautiful, very distinctive, like no other city I really experienced. So we had little tastes of a little bit of everything on this trip, but not only enjoying that and somewhere different than being in Philly all the time, but, it kind of invokes something in yourself of like, oh, I would like to live near the water, or wouldn't it be cool to live on a lake and be able to take a kayak out every morning? Things we don't normally think about here. So for me, and I think Helene feels the same way, it's like we're kind of every experience, every new travel, every year that we go somewhere, we're gathering intel on like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to live in this place or a place like that, And how do you know if you don't experience it? If you don't experience the culture or the people or the vibe or what the air smells like or the things you could do or the lifestyles of being in that particular town, in that particular place. So I really appreciate travel in that regard of like, I feel like I'm gaining experience. It almost does feel like a video game in a way. It feels like, oh, I've seen that place. Now I gather a little intelligence of what it feels like to really be there. And next year I want to go there because I haven't really experienced whatever, the desert or the Grand Canyon or whatever it is, or traveling abroad.
You'll be experiencing the desert in Philadelphia in about 20 years. So just
we're not far off.
Give it time.
We're definitely not far off. But yeah, so, and also though, when I get home, I realize there's also that part of myself again, where it's like, it's nice to be home. I feel a little more at ease when I'm at home. I feel a little more relaxed when I'm at home. And the other thing I don't really mind, I would rather drive. I'm not a great flyer. I'll get on an airplane. It's not, I'm not going to B.A. Baracus it where you can't get me on the plane without knocking me out. Like I'll get on the plane, but I like to drive. I legitimately like to drive. I find it very relaxing.
Baby, and I like that deep cut, baby. That's a deep cut, motherfucker. Keep going.
But I love to drive. I love to get in the car. I love to be behind the wheel. And it was interesting about the drive from, I guess we did the border crossing just north of, I'm not sure, Peru, New York. I guess Plattsburgh is the biggest town, but I think the border crossing maybe is like 30 miles north of Plattsburgh. Somebody out there listening will know. But coming into Quebec and then driving that 4 to 5 hours all the way up to Quebec City, it's very rural. It's like all farmland. And Helene was getting bored out of her mind. And I was legitimately enjoying it. It was just sort of the mountains in the distance, farmland, not that many cars once you get out of the big metropolitan areas. And, that's one thing too. It's like, I think, oh, you know what? I could drive a truck for a living. Like I could definitely deal with that. There's something really relaxing and sort of cathartic just about being behind the wheel. I definitely enjoy that. I think we're going to drive to Chicago next summer, which is a little longer. I think it's about 11 hours as opposed to 9. And that'll be our longest road trip. Last year was Toronto. That was a little shorter. This year was a little longer. Maybe we'll go to Toronto, and then who knows? Maybe we'll go all the way out west for the following year, 2025 or something. But yeah, man, I think traveling is really, I enjoy it the older I get, oddly enough. And I feel like there's another thing too. I don't know how you guys feel about this before we hand it over to Jaffe and Kyle. There's something that where I have, again, that sort of checklist or those bullet points I want to hit, where I feel like I have to hit everything domestically before I really venture overseas. I feel like we're working on that, but I'm getting a little restless the older I get because I really haven't traveled out of the country very often. And I feel like I have to shake that part of me where it's like, I want to travel across country. I've never done that. I've never gone all the way down to Florida. I've never driven to Texas. I've never driven to the Midwest. But I feel like I have to shake that part of me and I have to start my international travel is what I'm trying to say, because I feel like I'm running out of time.
Well, it's all relative, I think. Jaffe, where are you on travel? People know where I'm at on this, I think, but
I'm ambivalent, I suppose. I mean, I hate traveling for work. I despised it. I didn't mind being there when I got to Utah or when I got to Washington to go pitch Microsoft or whatever. But, the packing the night before, and then especially before Uber, you'd get up and you'd have to get the cab there, or you'd have to park. All the little fucking bit to bit things you have to do to get up to a place, I find excruciating. And then especially, if you're working like a Wednesday afternoon in Utah, and then you got to make sure the cab is here because I got to go 2 hours before. And then you get to the airport and you're just exhausted from the week and you're eating this crappy fucking airport food. And then you sit on the plane and you're just like, oh God, I just want to be home. So there's so much about travel on planes that really I despise. Going to Japan, holy fuck, that the flight, and then you get off and the flight's like, I don't know how many hours, 13 hours. Yeah. Then you get off the fucking plane and then you got to be in customs for 2 hours waiting in line. And then you got to fucking take a car, which takes 2 hours just to get to Tokyo, which is probably why you flew to Japan in the first place. I mean, it's just like, fuck me sideways. I hate it. But what I will say though is, if the destination is worth it, and there aren't many that are to me, going home to Alabama, I hate the process. I so love going home and seeing my family there, and I really need to get back there. I love New York City. It's the only city I've ever landed in within 2 hours. I didn't need to acclimate. I immediately was like, in another life, in a multiverse, I live here and I love it. It's just a delightful fucking city. At least it was back when I hear it's gotten worse. And I agree with Dagan about family travel. I love putting the kids in the car. And we still travel. My ex will go with us sometimes. So like we went to Solvang and we went to Vegas and I love those family trips, because it's just, quality or not so much quality time with the people you love the most. And, and they're making memories and that I adore. Or if you're involved in a romance, whether it's your wife or girlfriend or whatever, that's a lot of fun. Like I remember we used to go up to, where was that? It's like some Ysidro Ranch in Santa Barbara, right? I mean, if you're going like with your girlfriend and it's like bed and breakfast shit, I love that shit. I love the fucking feather beds and they bring you banana pancakes and it's just like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing in the fucking world. But short of that, I don't feel a need or desire. I don't care about seeing the pyramids. I don't care about seeing the Great Wall. I don't care about seeing anything else, and I don't mean that like I'm some kind of cranky old dude. It's just for me personally, it's never like if you're going to say, hey, Jaffe, you can jump through the hoops and we'll get you to Mars. I'm like, okay, I'm not even fucking with you. That's worth it. That's interesting. But why do I want to go to the Coliseum that's filled with tourists and just it's hot and I can just put on a fucking headset, look around in VRs. I get it. All right, let's move on. Or, I mean, I'm not being silly. I just, for my brain, it means nothing to me. I don't give a fuck about seeing the world. I much rather stay home. I'm much happier staying home.
Yeah, I'm the same way. And everyone knows that. I think it's probably similar to you where we speak from a place where we were kind of forced to travel a lot for our jobs. And so we were just force fed certain things. And so I feel like I'm like, all right, I did it. Like I have done it. It's not like I'm saying it from an insular point of view. And I think that that's an important thing. It's probably good to go and see things a little bit if you want. But I generally agree with you that for those that want convenience, and it's different than growing up doing the grand tour in Europe during like the 18th century or whatever, where it's like you're going to go to your one travel and you're going to be gone for 2 years. And that's very interesting and exciting. I don't feel like there's that much mystery. And I don't feel like being a homebody today necessarily makes you some sort of like hickish, uncultured person. Like you could have as much exposure to really whatever you want. Because in the places I've even been, there's so many American in Europe, for instance, and in Japan, I guess more Western alcoves or things that are like touchstones that are there specifically for people that are traveling that want like a taste of home or a piece of home or whatever. And it just goes to show you that even when you go travel to these places, you're not really doing as the Japanese, you're not doing as the German or whatever. So to me, I don't know. I don't need it. And
seriously, I would rather read a book that opens my mind and blows my mind, written from someone who has been there, or it's about something I don't know anything about, than go see a tourist display, unless it's with family. Family is different because you're not really going for the place. You're going for the experience with these people. But short of that, I would much rather read an archaeologist insight into the pyramids in Egypt than actually go and, all right, pyramids.
I'm sure it's cool, but like, is it worth it? That's
not to me.
Yeah, well, that's what I want to ask you guys, though, because it makes me think. I want to go see the Sistine Chapel, right? I want to go see the Eiffel Tower.
I'll send you a link right now if you want to see what it looks like.
Well,
what else do you need?
That's always been Colin's mentality in his adult years. And, we talk about the pyramids or those essential places you have to see, whether it's beauty or something that's epic. Would it be, the way we live our lives now, as long as we've been alive, at least, right? It's always like, yes, it would be amazing to go there and see that and witness those things. But traveling is the cross you have to bear or the price you have to pay in order to achieve that. What if we can make travel much more quick, much more efficient, much more comfortable, much more sort of appealing? Then you lower that barrier, right?
If you could if you could step through a transporter, I'd go everywhere, because why not? I'll have lunch with you in, Paris, and then let's hook up in Alabama and, sit by the lake. I mean, it would be amazing.
Yeah, that would be sick.
and that's coming eventually, maybe. By the way, there you go. There, I put in the chat. There's a picture of the Sistine Chapel and all the crowds. So you enjoy that.
Yeah, what's ironic is that you could see the Sistine Chapel in much better quality by not going there than by going
Imagine
there.
the smells of
I've
all
been
those
there.
people.
I tell you what, it's nothing like none of this stuff. Everything you're saying is shit. Both of you guys. Everything is better in person.
Well, I wouldn't disagree with you on that.
Okay, articulate why.
Well, like I just pulled up this picture you sent, and I know this. It was a gag, but I mean,
but if you're listening, which is the only thing you could be doing, well, you could be watching, but you can't see it. It's a picture of people in the Sistine Chapel, not the roof, but all the people gathered. It's like body to body. It's worse than E3, and everyone's just like
they're packed, like
doing
sardines.
that. They're packed like sardines, looking at the sky.
I will
talk to me about why that's worth it.
I will say it wasn't that packed when I was there, but it was still packed. I mean, there were still a lot of people. I don't know. Like, I just don't think there are very few pictures I've ever seen that have been better than a real thing. And I love history. I've gone to a lot of historical places. I've gone, and most of this stuff is like, okay, well, maybe I even had a class, like for instance, St. Peter's and the Sistine Chapel and everything. I had like a class that we spent like 2 weeks studying about those things. And of course, you see a million pictures and you learn about how everything's done. And then you get there and you're like, this is the culmination of. So here's the equivalent. And I know Colin's going to rage over this, of what you're saying. You're saying that why would I play a video game? I could just watch someone else play it. It's not the same. It's not the same as being there, seeing something.
You're absolutely right. It's not the same. But I think what Colin is saying, or what I am saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is your analogy works if I've played a video game and I've watched a video game and I like watching video games better.
Sure.
But I'm saying I've been to these places.
Right.
It doesn't do it for me.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some, like you say, history. Like I love American history, and I've only been to the White House once when I was in high school. Yeah. But I mean, I've only been to the White House once. I was in high school. I was with a girl I really liked. I didn't give a shit about, well, look, it's Abraham Lincoln's pill, all this shit. But now I would love to go back to DC and just lose myself in the tours and the White House tour. And I do remember going across the street from, I think it was the White House where Lincoln died, and they literally have the pillow his head was on, and you can see the blood stain, and that's like in a vacuum sealed box and shit. And I was just like, okay, I'll go, it's got to go above and beyond though. But just to go, what you're saying to me is it's better in person. I've seen a lot of shit in person. It's not for me, but for you, I do appreciate that your brain is different and my brain is different. I don't know. I'm very fascinated by why that is. Like, what is it about you that seeing it in person brings you to a place of great satisfaction and joy where I'm just as happy watching it in 360 on YouTube and using my mouse to look around.
Yeah.
I don't know what
with the
I've done a lot
Sistine
of
Chapel,
that.
that's where Michelangelo was there. He was breathing that rarefied air. He was doing that painting in that space. You're sharing that space. Now you're many centuries apart.
I'm probably sharing anyway. I'm just like, the air you're probably breathing is a bunch of fucking people who smell like shit and who are farting all the time and I didn't do it. Yeah, I don't know. That's the air I'm aware of. But I don't get off on the fact that I'm in this space that he was in. I mean,
I would agree with that. Yeah, I would agree with that too. I just I guess, okay, so a few years ago, I think Oculus had a thing where you could experience the Coliseum, for instance. And I mean, I like Coliseum. I was there. It's one of those places that is too crowded for me, and it's too hot there. But it's amazing still. The structure itself is amazing. And I was like, oh, I want to show this to someone. And I put it on. I'm like, this is 2 weeks after I got back. And I put it on and I was like, this sucks. This isn't this. Yeah, it's nice. You can see it and kind of get a vision of it. And of course, VR technology will progress and everything, and it'll get better and better. But I don't know, I might be dead by then. It's never for me going to be the same as being there.
Yeah.
It certainly isn't the same.
Right.
I think I have this is a uniquely Colin advantage, although I'm sure there are people that feel their own way in their own places. But I am curious about the rest of the world, but not that curious. I really am not. I mean, I think that I'm much more curious about my own civilization and my own history and all of these kinds of things. So I guess I just don't, as interesting as the pyramids or the Sphinx are, as interesting as, Moscow would be, or St. Petersburg would be, or these like different places you can go, although you probably wouldn't be able to go there right now, but typically speaking, and, I get it. I think it's a series of value judgments about, because like you said, it's like playing a game versus watching a game. And I think you're right. It's about whether or not you care to make that differentiation or not, or if that specific value judgment injures you in some way. Right. And I just don't care enough. I think all of these things would be good. One of the places I want to go to in the world is Easter Island. That's going to be a real annoying place to go. You got to go to Chile, and then you got to fly 2,000 miles into the Pacific Ocean or whatever.
Why do you want to go to Easter Island? I mean, it's just some fucking statues. You've seen them. Yeah,
it's because I'm fascinated by you have seen them, yes. And in fact, a lot of, when the island was found by Western people, they were already in decline, and all of the moai were pushed over and stuff like everything. The way everything is now is not even the way it was found necessarily, which is kind of interesting too. But something happened there that's really interesting and mysterious. It's just a very weird place, and I appreciate that. I also appreciate what you were saying about Mars. I feel that way about the moon and Mars, where it's like, yeah, I would definitely go to the moon, dude. Right. Mars, in my mind, I say like, yeah, I definitely want to go to Mars, but it's just,
you gotta be willing to die.
Right. Exactly. And just the length of time it takes to get there. Like the moon, you'd have to be willing to die too, but just a few days and you'll get there.
No, not with sleep, man. If you've ever been under anesthesia, just give me anesthesia every day. You won't know. You'll wake up and you're there.
Yeah. I don't think cryogenics would be better.
Oh, I don't think you could the body can't sustain that much anesthesia. I'm just saying.
Okay. I was going to say, because
by the time you or I have the ability to go to Mars, I'm sure they'll have cryogenics or some kind of long form sleep or hibernation or otherwise. Yeah, you're right.
I totally get that. And I will say that I've seen things in person that are really amazing. I think, Ben, you brought up going to battlefields and all these kinds of things. Like I've done a lot of that, and it's cool to go to Yorktown and wherever, Gettysburg or wherever, these like random places. And I totally agree with that, but I don't know. I think Jaffe was saying this too. I just like being in my space, in my comfort zone. It's my life. So I kind of want to live it I don't feel like I'm really necessarily enriching myself by going and doing those kinds of things. I feel like some people really get a kick out of it. And then I think some people feel like this is what they're supposed to be doing. Or like, you're supposed to be like active. You always got to use your time. You always got to be enriching yourself and all. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't want to live like that necessarily.
I think it's the way people, maybe the kind of learner you are, people learn different. For me, like there's a woman I follow on Instagram. She's on Twitter too. I think she's like Alice History or something. And she's all about European history, and she takes her camera crew, and it's like 2-minute segments all over Europe, and she's like showing you shit in Sherwood Forest and showing you, this square where people were executed and why they were executed, and just all these things I never would have known. And my brain is very happy. But if you were to say, Jaffe, get on a plane and go there, no, I don't need to go there. I've already got the itch scratched because the information. But maybe there are people where that itch gets scratched by actually just being present.
Oh, absolutely.
And I also dig. And it should be clear, like I like the beach. I like the woods a lot. So like going to those places around you and being in those things is good. And ultimately I want to build a house in the mountains, in the woods. And that's like will be like my house of all houses, hopefully one day. But so I appreciate the air, the quality of the quiet and nature and all of those things. But I just think I love the way we have it in my vicinity. I just don't need much more than that. Yeah.
But but you're going to a destination that you want something from. That's, I think, the difference. Yeah. A lot of people will just travel to travel.
Right.
And that's not for me. But it is, I get that it's for a great many people, and it's a big passion in their lives.
I would say that the travel to travel thing was me, college, shortly after. I traveled a lot for work, of course. But now I'm like, if I'm going somewhere, I want to do something cool. Like, I don't just want to go travel around. I want to go to a destination.
Right. Where's the one place you haven't been that you're like dying to go?
I don't know. I haven't been to like, as some people call it, the Holy Lands, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I'm interested, but there's so much stuff going on there right now that it's not particularly appealing.
Yeah.
I would like, in some sense, to go to Asia, but I think I'd get tired of it after about 10 minutes. So, like, some of the big cities, I very much like my own space and like smaller. I don't like huge crowds anymore like I used to.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, well, I'd love to just be in Shanghai one time for like
Right.
Yeah,
an
that'd
hour,
be cool.
have dinner there. But I don't want to travel 20 hours each way to do it,
Yeah.
you know? So,
I was
like,
telling
there's places I
Colin-
want to go and there's things I want to do, but there's nothing that's like, I definitely want to go here before I die. I just want to enjoy myself wherever I am.
That's good. I was telling Colin on the last show I did with him and Gene about this show called Devs. And have you seen it?
Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, the time travel thing, not that it's about time travel, but the ability to peer into history. Now that would, you know, I can actually watch Michelangelo paint the Sistine Chapel. Okay. That's more than worth the hoops I would need to jump through.
And then you can smell his farts.
That's okay though, you know, but it's amazing, you know, and you can go back and actually imagine that technology. You could prove all kinds of things. Christ on the cross, was it real?
I would.
Amazing.
I totally agree. That would be cool.
Amazing. Without
causing paradoxes. I have that written down. I need to watch that show when I get Hulu back. I don't have Hulu right now, so
it's only like I think it's only like 6 or 8 episodes.
Yeah, that's what he was saying. So over to you now. I'm very interested. You gave us 2 topics. I feel like the first topic you gave us, we might have talked about in some, and not with you necessarily, but this might have come up on another episode. But I want to hear your second topic instead, just because I feel like it's very interesting. I want to hear what you have to say.
So yeah, my topic is, and it's funny how it kind of relates to Ben's topic. Oh, it's so weird. You guys have changed places on my screen. Now I'm like, that's not Ben.
Yeah, everyone's different for me too.
In that it's really about maybe what you value in terms of how you want to spend your life when it comes to leisure time. But I'm starting to feel a little nostalgic for the pandemic. Now, let me be clear. I don't mean the illness, the sickness. I know people who have died. I don't mean any of that. But there was something about it from the very, you know, and maybe it's because those events that bring people together, such as they were, it didn't last very long. Then it kind of tore everybody apart, but are so rare these days, and that's good because they usually are built around disasters. But like 9/11 was a similar kind of touch point. But I remember the night before I was on Facebook with people in Alabama, my family. I'm like, hey, I'm thinking of keeping my kids home from school tomorrow. I'm hearing about this COVID thing, which was on Corona, and I had been tracking it in China when they were having like mobile crematoriums moving around the streets. I knew it was big, but I didn't know it was going to get over here. And everyone's like, nah, it's okay. You're worried too much. All right. And then the next day the school's like, yeah, come get your kids. We're kind of shutting down. And I went to the grocery store and it was just mobbed. And I have a picture somewhere of my grocery cart because I didn't know how long I, was going to be unable to go back out to the store, just filled to the brim. I must have get like $700 worth of groceries. Right. And it was me and the kids and the ex, and she just lives down the street. So, and we all it was like vacuum sealing the door, and it's like, we're in. And everything from things like that to the media, doing these shows like, the one I remember is like Disney Sing Along for families. And it was like Ryan Seacrest hosted it. And it was like, hey, we're all suffering this tragedy. Let's try to bring, it was just coming together. And it was all the movies premiering on, it was just the perfect for a homebody like me. It's like, you're with your kids. So I my kids are now 20 and 18, but I'm so grateful. It's terrible because I wanted them to have, their lives, but they couldn't. And so I got to spend more time than most parents with teenagers get to spend with their kids, And so we were family, we were ordering in food, we were cooking, we were watching media together. Even, when the kid's mom went home, we would play like online games where we could see each other, like, Pictionary and all that shit, Jackbox. And there was just a sense of I just liked that sense of community. I like that sense of coming together. I even remember I'm starting to have nostalgia for, even though I didn't like the arguing people were doing about, masks or statues or whatever, but it was like, I remember sitting at this very desk and watching live feeds during the George Floyd protests that were also happening at the same time. It was just like you had this window to history, and I had like 3 different live feeds up of like a statue they were trying to tear down in Alabama, and then Orange County rioting about the mask. And there was like one other thing, and I'm just like, this is incredible. The pain, the suffering, the sickness, the cost. Never listen to me and think I'm saying I have a fondness for that. But what it did was bring about a kind of closeness, and that with technology as well as with people actually in your sphere physically, that I just found wonderful. And so I'm a little nostalgic for it now as people are going back to work, and although it's spiking again, so who knows, maybe we'll get a sequel. But I really, there's aspects of it that I miss. So that's what I was thinking about.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Am I alone in this?
I'm actually curious to hear your guys' answers before I even get into it at all, because you all have kids. And so I think that's such an extra interesting dynamic, since it forced you all to kind of be the tightest familial units you'll probably ever have to be, just by force. But you also have all of you have kids of different ages, so it probably affected them all differently as well. Dag, where are you on this so-called pandemic nostalgia?
Yeah, man, I love this one. I mean, look, I'm 49 years old, right? Very nostalgic person. But I could safely say I've never been nostalgic. I've never pined nostalgic for a period only 2 or 3 years prior. But I get it. I really do get it. And it's interesting when I think of my kids, 13 and 16, this is going to be a really strong memory to recollect when they get older, right? I do think it's going to be in many ways like their 9/11, and they'll feel like it's the thing that they survived, which is really interesting on one hand. But you know what I think about, Jaffe? I'm not even just thinking about the pandemic and going through the throes of it starting in 2020. It was interesting because we were in Disney World. We got home on Valentine's Day of 2020. And I almost immediately got very sick. I always say I was patient 0 in Philly. Now, I don't know if I had COVID back then in mid-February of 2020, but it is interesting to think about that time period, especially in the spring-ish of 2020. We all think of those things. There was no toilet paper on the shelves, right? The kids were home doing laptop from in school remotely from the dining room table. We think of spraying down the groceries and leaving them in the garage for a couple of hours with our Clorox Anywhere. And that whole era is going to be defined by those things that we were doing back then. But what I think about is the changes that it ushered in that apply now. We were at the supermarket last night when food shopping, Helene and I, around 8:00 at night. We're there for 15 minutes. PA system comes crackling on. You got 45 minutes until the store closes. Supermarket was closing at 9:00. It was less than 3 years ago that supermarkets were 24 hours. And it was probably about 2 weeks ago that they were open to 11. What the hell is happening? And these were all changes that COVID ushered in. So you think of store hours. We live in the Northeast. There's no more 24-hour diners. They're done. Diners close at like 8, 9 o'clock.
Yeah, but is that COVID or is that the employment situation where people can't find workers?
I think all of those things are kind of strangely tied together, which, by the way, is not exclusive. Quebec was the same thing. They were way understaffed. There were restaurants that I would say, just from the scope and the business they were doing, maybe would have warranted 10 servers that had 2. And you feel like you're waiting 45 minutes for a table. It all makes sense. I think these are the things that started to happen when COVID became a reality, and we think of food prices, right? It feels like food prices have doubled. In reality, they've probably gone up 15 to 20%, maybe, depending on where you live. But they're stark differences than our reality, let's say in 2019 and earlier. And that's what I think of. I think of how much things have changed in this short amount of time. And also just seeing, like, I'm not really too big on social media. I sort of go in and I check my Twitter and I do an Instagram post once in a while, but I don't live on social media. In fact, I have a very love-hate relationship with it. But just in being within arm's length of social media and seeing the uptick in COVID cases again, realizing like this is a new reality. I don't mean to draw a parallel to the flu necessarily, but it's going to be another thing. It's going to be this cyclical viral thing added to the mix that we're all going to have to deal with. So I just think of our current reality now. And on one hand, it's nice that I hear kind of that kumbaya mentality of like, we came through something together, we got through it. And there were those moments just a few years ago where we didn't know what was going to, was this going to become The Road? Is this going to be a Cormac McCarthy novel, or were we going to get through this thing? Or was it going to become some sort of sci-fi movie?
Mm-hmm.
And we came through it, and that was awesome. So in many ways, I feel like we were tested, and we had the metal to get through, which is kind of rewarding. But at the same time, it is interesting to see all the changes that kind of feel small when you're having a conversation about them, but they're big things and pretty drastic changes over a short amount of time. And I think that's the reason why it feels like 2019 was 20 years ago instead of 4 years ago, because it's changed so drastically over such a short amount of time. And I think there were probably moments over the course of human history that this was this had happened, but not for people our age.
No. This was, like you said, you didn't know if we were heading into a post-apocalyptic. I mean, and maybe people will look back and laugh at that, but yeah, I mean, I remember you take a walk and it's like, don't let anyone get fucking near me, and I remember who's the anchor from CNN who got fired? His brother was New York's mayor.
Cuomo.
Yeah, I remember him talking about his experience down in the family basement when he was going through it. And it sounded like, he was dying of radiation poisoning the way he pitched it. Now, I don't know if he was being hyperbolic or because we didn't know anything about COVID at the time. There was nothing he was doing that was right to make himself feel better, but it was terrifying when you hear these people. I had a guy call into my show who worked in a morgue, and he said, we literally have bodies on the floor in body bags, and they're starting to rot because there's nowhere to put them. And then Central Park started digging up grave sites to temporary. I mean, it was, it was like, what is going to happen to us? This is insane, Thank God Trump showed up and said, drink bleach, and everything was great.
That would be another memory.
Yeah, that's right.
Ben, where are you on this so-called pandemic nostalgia?
I have almost nostalgia for wishing I had nostalgia. I was in a very different place than many people during this time. In 2020, I owned 2 brick and mortar businesses, one of which could not be open at all. And the other we had to, after they let us, switch over to doing, exclusively carry out. And still, because we were a small business, 20, 30 employees, depending on the time of year, I was very close with all of them to some degree, that I was also stressed out to hell on how they were going to stay able to pay their bills before a lot of the COVID money kicked in and stuff like that. So not only was I worried about my own ability to keep my businesses afloat, I was worried about my employees and how I was going to be, because so I know people think that small businesses, the owners somehow have a ton of money. It just wasn't true. I mean, before we were even in COVID, there were weeks where, hey, I'm not getting paid this week because I need to pay my employees. So that was very stressful. And because I couldn't keep the employees there as much, that meant I was there a lot cooking, stuff up, brewing beer, making sure people got it at the curb, which meant I didn't have I was probably gone from home more than normal because my family, so I didn't get to spend as much time with my family. In addition to that, at that time, I was also the mayor of a very small conservative town of about 15,000 people. And even though I lean a little more conservative myself, I was still trying my very best to take the situation as the leader, like at being the person who was responsible for all of these people as well, and having to, meet with the state on, over Zoom or teleconference or whatever, multiple times a week to get updates. And keep in mind, this is supposed to be a part-time job. I never treated it as a part-time job, being the mayor, but it was not a part-time job in any sense of the word. And so just never knowing what to do, never knowing who to listen to, because even people who agreed told you different things, and having, no matter what decisions you made or what decisions you were forced to make because of things that came from above, somebody's mad at you. And in our town, also everyone knew where I lived. So many people came knock on my door at 7 a.m. to tell me they were either mad that I was doing this or wasn't doing that. Other times people would come and knock on my door and tell me they were mad that the trash wasn't picked up that day. And I told them to call the trash company because that wasn't the city, but that's a different story entirely. So there is absolutely nothing about that time period that I am nostalgic for. I wish that I was nostalgic for it. So that's what I meant by being nostalgic, that I'm nostalgic. The only thing I will say is that before we were able to open back up for carryout, stuff like that, there was more time, a little bit more time, for probably 2 weeks where I was kind of, aimless. Didn't have anything to do with the businesses. And that's when Animal Crossing came out. And that was a lot of fun. But other than that, no, I don't. I am not reminiscent or nostalgic for that time at all. But I understand why people would be, for sure.
Yeah.
I was going to pick up on that, what you just said there at the end, which is what I feel too, in the sense that I get the many different reasons why a person would look back at that experience and be like, that was really interesting and unique, and there was something even good about it. And because I would imagine if you're a blue collar worker that simply can't be sent to work, and you're home for a month and you're maybe still getting paid or whatever, you're on unemployment, then whatever, and your family is with you and you get to be with your kids and all of that, and like that's a memorable thing, like Jaffe is saying. Or just the very act of the revolution of working from home and companies realizing that actually does work sufficiently, and just the way people's time were freed up. I think a lot of people found, you read these kinds of things, you don't know how anecdotal they are, obviously, but you read things sometimes where a person just found themselves and it's like, wow, I realized I had all this extra time and I don't need to spend my life like as a slave to corporations and all these kinds of things. I think there's a lot of revelatory moments that that the pandemic brought with it. To me, I think that the legacy of it is going to be really bad. And from an optical and political standpoint. And you were saying earlier, Jaffe, it's funny to me to hear it, and maybe you're obviously just speaking flippantly about it, but you're saying like, oh, maybe this is happening again. I'm like, that's never happening again. Not in the United States, like never shutting down like that again.
Oh,
never,
no, I mean, COVID is spiking.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying, but like maybe we'll have this whole situation. To me, I'm like, no, that was an exercise in compliance. And I'm surprised at my level of compliance, nonetheless, the nation's level of compliance towards things that were simply unknowable or not true from the very beginning. And that,
like what?
The origin of the virus, the lethality of the virus, all of these things.
Well, the origin we kind of still don't officially know, but we sort of know. But the lethality, you think it wasn't as lethal as people were saying?
I don't think the death count is accurate. No. And I think that from my perspective, and I wonder how people feel about this that were like my age, and you guys might all feel a way about this too, is that I'm relatively healthy and I'm athletic. I work out. I don't eat particularly well, but I'm not like, there's nothing really seriously wrong with my physical health. And I was made to believe in some sense that it was imperative for me to get this shot to help the vulnerable around me, including my mom, who's in her early 70s, has a pacemaker and all this shit. It's like,
right. That was the narrative. And I believe,
right.
I don't not believe it, but for me, that was the reason. I never felt comfortable with people telling healthy people to get a shot. But when they said, yes, but these healthy people can make people who are not as, privileged at the moment in their lives really sick and die, then I was like, okay, then it's a real fascinating topic to debate. But you're saying that was not the case?
Yeah, I'm saying that it's clearly not the case. And so, I mean, that's obvious. There's no other case. That the shot didn't stop anything from happening at all. It didn't stop anyone from getting it. It didn't stop anyone from spreading it. And so my whole point is that whether they knew that or not, I'm disappointed in my own level of compliance, really taking the propaganda, however you want to be fed it, saying that the older and more vulnerable people in my life are really going to require you to have this if you want to be around them. And I took it. And I don't necessarily regret that, but I think that there's obviously serious problems with the various shots people got, heart problems and all these things. Healthy people are just dying. People can pretend and be like, well, that always happened. So like, okay, if you say so. And I'm not saying that it's like this own endemic thing that's occurring all over the place. I'm just saying that there are these ramifications. And so I always feel like it's going to be remembered from me personally as a time where it's like, wow, man, I think everyone was tested in a certain way. And I was surprised by how fascistic a lot of people became, frankly, particularly on the political left. And I'm never going to forget that. I'm never going to forget like the things people said and the notions of locking people away and forcing people to take shots and like what they did to people in Australia and what they did to people in all these various places. And I'm never going to forget that on one hand. But on the other hand, I'm also never going to forget my own inherent buy-in to a degree that they were telling the truth or that they knew what they were talking about and they just didn't. And they made it seem like they did. And the things that were, it's like the joke of the Alex Jones tip jar meme. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, where it's like a jar and it just says Alex Jones tip jar and it's just full of money, right? Where almost everything they said about it was a lie, whether or not it bore out later or not, whether they were working with incomplete information. And I'm puzzled by why more people aren't concerned about that. Like just the very origin of it. I'm going to give you guys a hint. It's man-made from China. I'm not saying they released it intentionally. I don't think that that's true. I don't think
Kyle, how much of it is what you're saying? Because I understand what you're saying. And sometimes I get cynical about certain aspects of this too. But how much of it is what you're saying, not just about the origins, but about everything, versus that this was the Wild West? It was just kind of us, not just our country, but the world putting their best foot forward and trying to figure something out.
I agree with that. I totally think that that's true. That's the scientific method in action. Right. But they never positioned it like that. Not one time. It was always with great confidence and absolute authority that things were said, to the point where I look back at that. I really think we need to have a really salient, sober rewind of that whole situation. And the levels I really respect, I got to be honest with you, I respect the shit out of people that from the very beginning were like, nope, you're lying about it. Or you're lying about the origin. You're lying about the veracity of the pandemic or the veracity of the shot. You're lying about how deadly it is. Any spectrum of those things. Those people were right. And
that's where I don't understand. Like as you probably know, I mean, I would not put it past the government to lie. And I would not put it past the corporations that own the government to lie for their own financial benefit. Hell, we know Trump lied about it because he's on record with, what is it, Bernstein or Woodward? I forget which one did the book. And he literally says on tape, you can hear it, where he says, well, yeah, I lied about it not being that serious because I didn't want people to get panicked.
Right.
And that's the fucking, so who knows?
The virtuous lie. That's the same thing that Fauci said about masks, right? That's another thing. Masks don't work.
Okay, but hang on. So this is the thing.
Yeah.
I think people, certainly I'm super on the left, and I absolutely would have my guard up against fascist behavior. And it's not because it came from science that I was willing to take a shot. You saying, though, masks definitively don't work. They oversold how dangerous it was. The vaccine hasn't done anything except harm people. If I could see evidence, and I don't mean this fucking, you know what I'm talking about, this wackadoo bullshit evidence. If I could see some evidence from the AP or from PBS or from someone that wasn't vested in a narrative, then I would say, oh yeah, that was terrible. I'd be right there with you. But I haven't heard a lot of people saying the vaccine did nothing. I've heard people say what it mostly did is kept people from getting a lot sicker than they would have been dying. Are you saying that's not true?
I think that probably is true to a degree, but that's not a vaccine. And
okay, well, maybe they mislabeled it, but
right.
I mean,
I guess that's the whole point that I'm making, is just that I am ashamed in some way of how much I bought in as someone who isn't on the political right, because I don't care about that at all, but someone who really did think that I was doing the right thing by my community. I remember even it was at the Richmond Raceway where you can get your shot here in central Virginia. And my mom was being like, why don't you go get yours or whatever. And I'm like, I just want to like chill and let the people that need it most get it. And then I'll go get it when there's more openings. Like I really tried to conduct myself like and that sounds kind of corny, like Boy Scoutish, but I was trying to be like a good citizen.
Okay.
Right. And I'm just disappointed, not that the things that they said weren't true, but that whether or not they knew and what they knew at the time, but that there's just no accounting for it. And I know you and I had this conversation in the past, like one way or the other, there will be an accounting for this. It's going to come. It's either going to come.
Data is accurate. My concern is you've got people all over the spectrum that are pontificating as if they are stating facts. Whether it's, and you know how it is, we're in a very dangerous time. And I think maybe if the pandemic did anything, it brought more light to the fact that people choose the facts they like, not the facts that are the facts. Because I'm a big boy. I've been wrong before. I can look at Trump, and as much as I despise Trump, I can say, oh, okay, but these 4 policies were good for the country. Maybe another president could take those on. I don't have to be right. I don't, even though I have bias and ego, I think I have a self-awareness enough that I can put that aside. But if you're going to tell me that the vaccine doesn't work, masks don't work, it was intentional, it was this, it was that, I would believe all of those things. I would never put it past our government to be that fucking stupid.
Yeah, and I want to be clear.
Right.
I don't think
but
it was.
Where's the data, though?
First of all, I think that there's really good data about, if you look at the historical data about places that locked down and how they locked down entire countries that did or didn't lock down. There's really the effects of lockdowns, of masks, and all these things seem to be somewhat negligible. And being in the South, and
Florida apparently has the worst, and DeSantis was the one going, "Oh, we're gonna open this shit up. This is bullshit." And I think they have the most number of deaths or something, but they also have a lot of old people. Yeah, so maybe that's
well, they have a lot of old people, and he was also reelected by 20 points. So like what he did wasn't unpopular by any stretch of the imagination. That's like an utter landslide in American politics. So to me, I look at the Florida experience as like the replicable experience that everyone wanted, which was just more choice. I'm not that far south, so here in the more mid South thing, by the fall of 2020 and the winter of 2021 into the spring or whatever, it was basically done here. And that's why I think it's so funny to see there's a whole subreddit of people that are like zero COVID, won't like just really crazy, and that's totally fine. But it's just funny, like
what is zero COVID?
Where it's like they won't expose themselves. They wear like these crazy masks, and they're just horrified of getting it, and they try to stay away from it and people and their families. And it's kind of sad actually to read some of the stuff there. But like hypochondriac style stuff. Right. And I just think that it's unfortunate that something like this was used in the way it was, because everyone's always going to be skeptical of anything. Like our generations of people, very similar to the Depression generation, always being skeptical of true value and money, of economic stability and all of that, and preparing on a constant basis for the worst case scenario, right? And how that kind of came through our parents, and it's kind of going away, right? I think that the people that are, if they're paying any attention whatsoever, the people from our generation, the generations below, and maybe those raised by us, whatever, are going to be incredibly skeptical of power. And they should, they absolutely should be. And that's what I was saying about, I'm not disappointed that we get things wrong. The fucking Apollo 1 spaceship blew up on the tarmac, right? Like the government does things sometimes and it's horrible and it's an accident and a mistake, but they just never admitted it, right? Like there has to be an accounting, like Congress. And that's what I was saying. It's either going to come through Congress or it's going to come through an electoral landslide at some point where people are going to be like, we need real answers. Like, why aren't there ramifications for what happened? Like, what are we going to do next time something like this happens? What safeguards are in place to ensure that people's businesses aren't shut down for really no reason? If people want to interact with each other, that's the whole thing. And they utilized the kind of good neighbor policy and doing unto others, which I think is a really good thing for society to have embedded in it. But they used it to kind of a deleterious and negative effect for a lot of people's lives. A lot of people's lives were completely ruined by the pandemic, and I think
you talk about it as if it is what, and it may have been, by the way, but you talk about it as if there was a maliciousness behind it. But I mean, in what world would the American government, and it wasn't just America, would the world governments or government, depending on what you believe, want the economy to crater and collapse? Why would, I mean, are we literally saying that the three big pharma companies are so powerful that they affect the entire world and can collapse the economy? Because when you say you're ashamed of how you acted, how else would you act? I mean, you're not a scientist, you're not a doctor.
No, but I think I'm just gonna be, I want to be compliant to a degree, right?
What I'm saying is, if you had your brain today and you went back then, it wasn't like there was any extra. You don't have extra data now that you can really say they don't know what they're doing. The thing that I would worry about is more citizens going, I know better than the doctors. It's like there's a point where you got to let go and go, look, you're not going to control every fucking lever of this experience of life. You're just not. Unless you don't want to, unless you want to die at the average age of 30, like people did 100 years ago.
Right.
And so I get what you're saying. It's an awful feeling to feel that you've been duped. But if I were to go back in time based on the data that was being given to me, and the only alternative data was coming from people standing, in front of the Washington Monument, people who had claimed to get demons out with voodoo dolls, saying, hey, take this fucking crazy medicine. I'm like, they weren't giving us many alternatives, were they?
No,
and
we made
weren't.
Our best guess, right? Like, it's the very definition of social responsibility, a vaccine, right? You take it for the social good. It's not just about you. It's not just about your family. It's about the greater good. It's about everybody, right? So you and I and so many of us, Kyle, put our best foot forward on that. Even though it was these vaccines were developed over a short time, we said we made a decision. Everybody made a decision, but I still think you made the right decision, right? But I mean, and again, it's a shame that it's so political. Because that was the thing I'm not nostalgic about, is what this thing did to families and friends politically. It really fucked a lot of people up.
Right, but
that was there anyway, though. I mean, truth be told, that was a bomb waiting to go off. This was just the match they happen to have.
Yeah, that ignited it. Sure. Yeah,
I didn't even mean for this conversation about pandemic nostalgia to get off on this degree. What I was really trying to say was, and I guess I'll get to my point finally, is that
but this is more interesting than my topic anyway.
Well, what I was going to say was my life didn't change at all during the pandemic, not even a little bit. I live in my own house. I run my own business. It's a remote business anyway, so nothing changed for me, or very minimal amount of things changed for me. And
that you're aware of. I would argue you offered an insanely valuable service that you'll probably never know what the work you guys do gave to people during that time. Because there was a sense of comfort and there was a sense of stability and there was a sense of, hey, these are my boys getting together to talk about what I love and I don't have to think about, So I imagine a lot of the success that you guys have had with this is, work ethic, talent, entertainment, sure. But I think the timing
timing's everything.
You guys were right there for people. And I hope you guys are aware of the value of that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we did reach another level of growth and size during the pandemic, which was great for our business. But
and Colin, you moved right before everything kicked off too, because a few months earlier, it would have been a little different.
You were in LA, right?
Yeah. I always say that, and my family always reflects on that too when we talk to people, is I left LA Christmas Eve, 2019, and this all kicked off, in March or whatever.
Months later, yeah.
And so the timing was just serendipitous. But so I guess what I'm saying is that I understand the many personal ramifications of the pandemic and what it did to people in a positive way, especially with their work, with their families, with all these different things and just discovering things about themselves and all of that. And so I think that there's a nostalgia there. There's nothing for me to really be nostalgic about since I probably lived the same exact way now that I did in the summer of 2020, let's say. And the only other thing that I wanted to touch on again, and I explained it much more than I thought we were going to because we got into it a little bit, was my remembrance of this time will always just be of severe skepticism for whatever I'm being told by centers of power. My inclination has always been that the government's kind of just lying or obfuscating everything anyway.
Absolutely.
And so why would it be any different here? But that's just been reinforced to the point where the next big thing that happened, which was Russia's invasion of Ukraine, where I'm like, well, I don't believe anything you guys say about this. So you could say whatever, well, you guys could say whatever you want, but anything you say, I just think is a lie. And that's partially fed by my inherent skepticism as maybe a Republican leaning person in the United States. And part of that is my skepticism fed by an experience just a couple of years ago where everything we were told was false was true. And that's kind of weird. And
it's only weird if you believe that everything we were told was false was true. And I would suggest that if you were to talk to someone really educated on the subject that wasn't biased in either direction, you would find that statement may not hold water. I'm not saying some of what we were told is false, it ended up being true, is not an accurate statement, but everything.
Well, I'll underline specifically what I mean. So and so people know, and we can say more or move on or whatever. The origin, wrong.
Hang on, yep. Wrong. They never said, they said, we think it came from a wet market in China, but we don't know. No one ever planted a flag and said it came from a bat in a wet market.
I don't know, man. This seems kind of revisionist to me, Jaffe, a little bit. Like it seems a little bit revisionist to pretend that. Right, I mean, am I crazy though? I mean,
I don't think there was ever a definitive where it came from.
I think that anyone who suggested that it came from a bioweapons lab was marginalized very quickly.
I said that immediately, though. I said that
What'd
immediately.
You say, Ben? Sorry, I missed that.
I was just saying, I do remember people saying it came from a lab were mocked out of existence. I don't remember if there was a definitive statement on where who or
there were people that said there were scientists during like the February, March, even January, February, March that were identifying early scientific research and being like, this has biomarkers that were made in a lab. Right. And then those people very quickly recanted. Right.
Yeah, they recanted and they were mocked and then they were called racist.
Right. Exactly. And everyone was called, for some reason, it's less racist that it came from a fucking wet market than from a bioweapons lab. That itself didn't make any sense. That's when you knew they were like, we're throwing anything against the wall so people don't realize. Because of course they, and I get it in some sense. It doesn't mean they should be lying about it, but they don't want you to know that that would have really changed the entire tenor. First of all, think about just Trump alone, his anti-China stuff, right? Yeah. And you find out in the spring or summer of 2020 that it's from the COVID started in Chinese, he wins in a landslide. You know, like there are of course reasons, many different reasons that you want to obfuscate this information. And of course, you want to protect Asian Americans too from hate crimes and all the other different things. I understand the different reasons why you might want to do that. But out of the things I'm going to say, I feel like that's the most definitive.
Well, I think ignorance is also one of those. Like,
yeah, oh sure. Well, very similar after 9/11 would be a very similar thing with the way people were treated after that, right?
Oh, and sorry, I meant as far as like the United States and the world officials saying it didn't come from there. Maybe it was a lie, maybe it was obfuscation, but I think there was just as much they were just wrong. They were just clueless. Like it may not have been an intentional lie, but
yeah, I think my personal opinion on this is that cluelessness is possible, if not probable, and it didn't last very long.
Right.
Because there were just markers on the virus that they're just saying like there were people you could go read it if you want, Jaffe.
You don't have to convince me. Yeah. It would not surprise me. My argument is not that it didn't come from a lab. If I had a gun to my head and somebody said, if you get it wrong, we'll shoot you, I'd say, okay, it came from a lab. Absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind that that's the most probable. What I'm saying though, is not what you and I think happened, but you're saying everything they said that was true was false and vice versa as a definitive statement. If I'm looking, and again, it's the New York Times, but I'm sure I'll find it anywhere. Government agencies have been analyzing the origin of the pandemic since 2020, but they remain split about the most likely explanation. Most still favor a spillover. None of them have changed their conclusions after seeing the Energy Department's findings. The debate is politically fraught. The lab leak theory gained currency among Republicans in the spring of 2020 after President Trump, who used inflammatory terms to blame China for the pandemic, latched on to the idea.
Right, because so what that's basically saying is that there are a bunch of different agencies that did all of their independent investigations, and I think it was the Energy Department that was the first one to conclude that it came from a lab and they have different levels of like definitive.
Right. So I'm saying that the official word is we don't really know, or we haven't said officially anything other than we don't know.
And what I'm saying to you is that I don't believe them.
I don't believe them either. But that doesn't mean that they said one thing and did the other. They're telling you we don't know.
Yeah, I think that, again, to the point is that I think that there were a couple of things that were missing, which is like, okay, so where are the animals that have it? Which is number one. And number two, so there should be in the wild. And this, if you read about AIDS patient zero and all the stuff that happened before World War II with AIDS or whatever, this is a little more salient to you. I only know this because I've read about it. So it's not like common knowledge. So that might be interesting. And the second thing is just that I think that, as I said, the dial turned towards a certain thing and they pretended that it was never turning that way. And that's different than not knowing.
Who is they?
The powers that be. Whether you think about...
Well, was it Trump? He was in power.
Sure.
I mean, but I said it came from a lab, right?
Sure. But I think it goes, and this gets in the who's like, and I don't mean like deep state Q conspiracies or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying at all. But like the intelligence agencies kind of work on their own, come to different conclusions, or often appointees from different administrations working in different permutations with each other. So, and I think that the federal government's intelligence agencies are inept, if not corrupt. So I want to be clear about that as well. And I think that this is really exposed that too.
Let me ask you this, if you don't mind. Let me cut to the quick of it then, which is, if you're saying you're going to move forward in your life with a heightened level of skepticism than what you had before, at what point do you have to just go off the grid and say, I have to be in one of those beautiful tiny houses in the woods and just control only what I see? Because whoever's in office, whoever's in power, you can't usually trust the people you work for. Hell, sometimes you can't trust your fucking spouse. What is your heightened skepticism going to bring to you if you keep living in this society other than just misery? Because don't you have to be consciously ignorant or at least have a little faith? Otherwise, everything's a lie. I mean, Vietnam was a fucking lie. World War II may have been a fucking lie. I mean,
Vietnam was definitely a lie. I mean, it was totally a lie.
So once you have the curtains open, I think the question becomes, what is a healthy way to live if you're not going to leave that society?
I think that, I think you spoke to it a little bit, which is kind of, I think that to remain sane, you have to kind of remain at least a little bit ignorant, or let's put it a different way, that you have to kind of accept that certain things are. Let me give you an example. When I look at my phone and I see an ad for something that I was just talking about with Micah, I understand that the phone's listening to me.
Understood.
Right.
Yeah, of course.
And
I'll tell you it's not. But it is.
Right. And we kind of just say like, all right, I guess it's kind of benign, or, like whatever, who cares? Like it's not really a big deal.
Right.
And I think that generally speaking, the little lies, they can amount to a lot, of course, but fibs and lies and obfuscations from the press secretary and all these things are expected. Your CJ Craigs and all that. Right. But to me, I think that if we just tune ourselves all collectively up just another degree of skepticism, then we get a different outcome electorally. We get a different outcome with expectations. It's going to get into my next topic. Actually, or if you guys are good on this, we can actually just move right into it.
Yeah, and it's also related, right? Because your topic kicks off with, I assume, Title 42.
Right, exactly.
Which is,
So I wanted to talk to you, and I didn't know when I put this topic out there that Jaffe was also going to do something that was political slanted, although I'm happy to talk about politics on the show. I don't care. I love talking about politics personally.
Me too.
I think a lot of people, whether they hear things that they agree with or disagree with, I've said this in the past, I think some people just need to grow up. Like sometimes these conversations come up and they're important to listen to.
And be open.
Right.
Colin may be right about every fucking thing he's saying. He's a smart motherfucker. But also be willing to say, okay, as much as I respect you, I got to see some data that feels on the up and up. But yeah, people who push back on that, I don't want to hear anything about politics. Just relax. Be agnostic.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to lie to you. Everybody. So just accept that and try to get the truth.
And I think to that point, I used to talk about abortion as being this thing where I was pro-life when I went to college and left college pro-choice because I was very much convinced by people that I went to school with that my position was not only incompatible with my true beliefs, but incompatible maybe even with a sense of the definition of liberty in that. And
case. You also were quite the ladies' man. Boom! How many kids, Colin, did you abort back in those days? Was it 17? I got 18 right here.
On a constant basis.
Coat hanger Colin, here he comes, boys.
So that used to be my kind of like, you can change your mind by listening to good arguments. But in more recent years, like let's say the last 5 years to 10 years, but I would say more the last 5 years, I've become much more liberal in terms of certain policies with like universal health care and all those kinds of things. So if you, to the point, like I listen to a lot of adversarial content in those ways. I like listening to a lot of like academic debates, and you listen to the Oxford series and all these different things of people just presenting tons of different ideas and then coming up with your own conclusions. So hopefully people get that kind of stuff out of this too. But I wanted to bring up illegal immigration, which is a topic that seems to always just be present in the United States, especially the last 25 years or so. And those that are old enough or more connected enough to politics know that this was probably almost solved during the second Bush term in the second Bush administration. So like in 2005, 2006, 2007, but it was where there was going to be comprehensive immigration reform in the United States and hopefully solve this problem. But I'm puzzled by our general laissez-faire attitude that we have potentially 15 million people in the United States here that don't have permission or belong here by right of law, that we don't do anything about it by choice. And I think the biggest thing that I'm really disappointed about is that it sucks up resources, tons and tons and tons of resources that can be going towards American citizens who live on the street or live in addiction or whatever. And I wanted to know what you guys thought about this problem, because we're the only country in the world where this really of any first world consequence where this happens. People don't walk into other countries. That's not the way it goes. You have EU where you can go between borders. Now you have the UK. You have places like China and Russia where you'd get fucking shot if you even tried to walk across the border without permission, and so on and so forth. You but for some reason we're positioned here where it's like we have to accept that this is the reality, even though it's not, that we could seal the border completely and never have one person sneak through it if we really wanted to. And that there must be reasons that we don't want that to be. And I mean we as the collective power structure in the United States. Let's say the government and like an oligarchical economic situation where you need cheap labor and all those kinds of things. I think all of that is feeding on this situation. But I'm really bummed out that we have this situation and we just feel like I just feel like we've been throwing our hands up about it for so long. I want to know what you guys think, if there's a problem, what should be done about it. And I'll just say that the entire idea of even using the American military to seal the border at this point is a fine idea for me. That's what the American military is for, is to protect the United States, not to be fighting overseas and all these fucking oil fields and shit around the world and sending our weapons to Eastern Europe and all of that. And so I think we need to stop the flow of people from coming in, but I also think that we need to deal with the people that are here. And so that's a whole nother problem. And so it's a multifaceted problem. And I was curious, as we end this more political second half of our podcast, what you guys think. So Dig, let's go to you first. I'm curious what you think. I don't know where you stand on this topic at all. This is nothing that's never come up between us, I don't think.
Yeah, we rarely get to talk about things like this. You know, it's funny. I was always leery to talk about politics, and I'm a little newer to podcasting than you guys too. But you know, I think we do a good job because I think it's clear to our listeners that we're not ostracizing. You know, I think in these conversations, your political stripe's going to get revealed a little bit. I think that's inevitable, but I think that's important for me, for our listeners to know from my perspective, is that, you know, it's like you and Jaffe were saying, it's an open-minded thing. It's a respectful thing. And that's why I'm slowly learning, I'm falling on that a little bit, where it's like, it's okay. Like, as long as I think the respectfulness is paramount. I think that's super important. And, with immigration, it's a really tough issue. I mean, I know I don't want to oversimplify, and I don't think I'm as educated on this, on the current doings as you, Kyle, for instance. But, I do understand on one hand, in the United States, we need some rules, parameters, governing structure, reasonable laws, surrounding immigration. I get all that. But I think the way I feel is at the root of things, right? It's a people thing. It's a human being thing. I think in all of this, I think sometimes we forget the whole thing of, give me you're tired, you're poor, you're huddled masses yearning to breathe free. I think that's a really important part of what the United States is. And I think you mentioned it early in the conversation, Kyle, with this, take other countries. And I'm not even thinking extremes like Soviet Union and China. Let's take a country like Denmark, a Western country, prosperous, beautiful, proud. I mean, I've been wanting to go to Copenhagen for 30 years. Like, I'm not talking shit on Denmark, but I think if I'm not mistaken,
very, very, very white.
There's
very
white.
Not a lot of people of color in places like that, which I'm not saying that's good or bad for them. I'm saying that it's easy to run a country when you don't have, a lot of other things like America does. So,
sure.
But I love Denmark. Are you kidding me? That's a place I would love to live. Keep going.
Oh my God. I mean, and on a much smaller population, so hard to compare to a place like the United States, but also like, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, with South Korea, highest educational standards and successes in the world, and lots to be proud of.
Yeah.
And bravo to our European brothers and sisters, right? But very notoriously closed borders. You can't get into Denmark, right? So it is interesting when you start comparing and contrasting. For me, though, it's this thing. I think it's easy for us as Americans right now, with the current state of things, with the dissolving of Title 42 and opening the floodgates on immigration, or at least that's the perception. I think it's easy to get lost in the statistics and the figures and the data. Look at things like, I think I heard the other day, only less than 700 immigration judges in the country, but millions of asylum and citizenship cases pending, right? 11 million or maybe more, like Colin was saying, undocumented immigrants in this country. That's 2 huge cities, American cities worth of undocumented immigrants, right? So I think it's easy to look at those figures and understand that maybe there's an issue, maybe there's a problem. But the thing for me is, like, that's a point of pride of this country. You can't, I think, and Colin, you and I may have talked about this specifically in the past, where we have butted heads on this a little bit, where it was like, I don't believe you can close the borders in the United States. That's everything this country was fucking built upon. You know what I mean? It's like, we're here to provide a place for freedom for people to come, live a life, learn, earn a livable wage, maybe have a family, a comfortable place to live, and earn an honest, make a life for yourself. That's
okay. But you're allowing the PR of America to butt up against the reality of America. That's PR.
Well, I think those are ideals.
And they are ideals.
They're ideals.
I love them,
and I don't mean to be, like I always say, like, I don't mean to be overly John Lennon about anything, but they are certainly ideals. And I'm not being, it's not, you have to decipher the reality from the fantasy, and also the way the country's evolved in the last however many decades we're comparing to, right? But I don't think it's like, what are we? So, we like to wave the flag, and we like to say how great we are, and we like to say, we're the best and we're number one and all that. But how are we any different than anybody else if we do that? That's the thing. If we shut down, even temporarily, I just think, for me, and I want to hear all you guys weigh in on this too. For me, that's almost unthinkable. And again, it's. I know there's other things. I know there's other considerations, security, all of those things. I mean, it's a complicated and complex issue, obviously. And it's one of those things too, where it seems unfortunate that the political nature of it, ties in. Well, unfortunately, only because I think that that's what sort of draws the arguments, is that you're lining up on the right or you're lining up on the left. And, I do feel a certain way politically about many things, but I'm not a guy that just blindly toe the party line. It's just genuinely how I feel. And, I'll just end with, before I kick it over to you guys, with, I guess, what I think sometimes happens in this country, not with everybody, but to a large degree, is that I think the American people get upset and they get angry because they think the system is being gamed, if that makes sense. And again, I don't want to oversimplify that, but they think it's almost like we feel like we're getting taken advantage of.
Well, we are.
And they're right.
They're absolutely right. I mean, there is no feel about that. Like, we are being taken advantage of. That's the whole thing with, in my opinion, it's not my opinion. 9 out of 10 people that claim asylum are immediately have their asylum claims immediately thrown out, like not even adjudicated, because they're nonsense.
Right.
And the reason that this was inspired, Dagan, the reason I was inspired to do this was I was reading the New York Times a day or two ago, and there was an article about parents in a upscale Manhattan school district with the school year coming up, where their class sizes are going to go from 30 to 50 in their elementary schools because of all of the kids that are coming from migrants and illegal immigrants and their children here. And that's a result of, maybe, in my opinion, and I don't know if you guys agree or disagree, maybe the most brilliant political move that the Republicans have dispatched in maybe a generation, which is saying, like, oh, you have sanctuary cities in those places, you want them? Okay, here you go. And just busing them and sending them by the thousands to these cities. It's brilliant. Completely brilliant. And New York, and I don't mean it's brilliant because you want people to be pawns. They're putting themselves in that position by crossing the border. I don't really feel that bad about it, to be honest. But the reality is that they have to do something to get attention to what is going on, has been going on for decades in the South. And now New York City and LA and all these places have nowhere for these people to go. But they've been preaching from the top of we're sanctuary cities. No person is illegal. And now their people, their taxpayers, are dealing with the ramifications of their classes for their kids that they pay taxes for, 50% bigger. They're being taken advantage of, dude. They're being taken for a fucking ride, So
where do you draw up reasonable limits or some sort of governing body where you could still, I don't know, you could still keep your doors open?
We have legal immigration. I don't think that we should get rid of that. Like, I think that that's totally fine. I think we have a pretty prosperous legal immigrant community in the United States. Some of the wealthiest Americans are first generation Indians, and some of the most educated Americans are first generation Nigerians.
Right.
And you guys can go look that up if you don't believe it. So we have great things happening with immigrant. I don't want that to stop at all. You just can't have it uncontrolled by the millions. People are coming across sometimes in weeks by the tens of thousands.
That's what they say.
There's an entire system to funnel them over. There's billions of dollars in business being done by coyotes and the cartels that completely control this. The cartels, of course, we have a much more left-wing government now in Mexico that is basically pro-cartel, or at least under the cartel's control. And so I just think, I want to be clear. I don't think you shut the spigot off at all. That's happening regardless of what happens on the southern border. And I don't think that there should be anything to but we can't just withstand people just because they want to be here. That's not sufficient. Like, that's just not realistic. I don't know why that's so difficult for people to hear or say, but it's just the way it goes. It's the same reason why we can't fight every war in the world. Of course we should in quotes get involved in a bunch of things, but we can't. And we shouldn't really, and it's not really worth our lives. And it's not really worth our money and our land and all that kind of stuff. And so I think that this is the similar kind of situation. Jaffe, I'm surprised to hear some agreement with you on this.
Well, I think I have a lot to say on this. So I don't know if we want to let Ben go first. I don't know if you're as passionate about this as I am, Ben, but I mean, what's your show? So whatever you guys want.
No, go ahead. Take it. Well, we can
Jaffe,
get
I'm as passionate about anything as you are.
Oh, okay.
So just...
I have some Riddle in here, and I can send you some, or some weed, whatever works, baby. Listen, my opinion on this is that I think you have to be very careful when discussing it, because a lot of people are being taken for a ride on both sides of the spectrum. And it's not about politics. It's about late stage capitalism, right? It's about the world economy, and it's trying to solve it by going, hey, let's let people come into America, but let's do it legally, or this, that, or the other. Is like trying to cure cancer with a Tylenol, right? Because it's not really, you might ease a moment of pain, you might win or lose an election, but the real issue is the money. Let's take some of these things, right? So if you say, look, if America could actually take the money saved by the resources spent on illegal immigrants, and it would go to our problems like homelessness, better public education, I think you'd have a lot more people all over America saying, oh, well, fuck, we didn't, I see what happened in Alabama. Suddenly their schools went from 40th to 3rd because they had a serious immigration policy, and the money they gained from shutting that shit down actually made the lives of Alabamians better. But we know good and well that that's not really ever going to happen. We could solve, well, I'm not solving it, but we could make sure 1 out of 6 kids doesn't go to bed every night hungry in the snap of our fingers if we wanted to, but we don't. Similar with homelessness, but we don't, okay? If we really gave a shit about it, we could end the drug wars that have not worked since the 60s, that were created mostly as a political tool to get people like Nixon in power. And now they've become a huge business. Well, it's also the reason a lot of these people, these innocent fucking families, are running not just Mexico, but these other countries that are overrun with warlords and cartels and drug dealers, and battling and killing each other over routes into America like it's the fucking Godfather, and who gets to own this corner of the fucking, deli and all that shit. Well, let's just end the drug war, at least on things like MDMA and weed and psychedelics. But God forbid we would do that, because who knows the money we're going to lose there. We don't really care, right? So the people sitting there arguing about, this is America, there should be rules, there shouldn't be rules, open borders, blah, blah, blah. That's smokescreen, right? You literally have Republican governments. You have the fucking governor of Utah, you can't get much more Republican than that, is on the side of the Democrats, because he's like, look, we have 100,000 job openings here. We can't fill them. You guys talk about you need 10 waiters to serve at the restaurant. You only had 2. Well, yeah, because no one's taking these jobs, and it's hurting the economy. And so you literally have the Montana governor, you have the Utah governor, and there's like 3 more that have gone on the side of the Democrats on this. Not that the Democrats are right or wrong, but on this particular issue, which I think is like trying to impeach the head of Homeland Security or something, is what they're doing. They're like, look, we're kind of okay if you want to send us the immigrants, because we need it for our fucking workforce. So how much of that is playing a role?
That's a big part. That's a huge part of it.
Right.
Huge.
Same thing with E-Verify, and the reason that they don't want to do it. They don't want to know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then the whole thing about crime, the statistics show that less than 1% of illegal immigrants commit violent crimes. It's like 0.6%. Right. So, and we've never had a terrorist attack in America where it's like, oh, those motherfuckers got in illegally. Hell, the 9/11 hijackers, we knew they were here.
Yeah,
they were here, So it's not that I don't understand the anger and the drama, but I think really what it is the powers that be on whatever side of the aisle or whatever billionaire you want to pick. They want their drug wars. They want the money to the military. They want their Lockheed Martins. They want to be elected. All these are the things that are driving it. It's got nothing to do with, you think America's so goddamn great that these people want to, leave their homes and families. They're fucking little kids and moms and dads that are desperate because warlords are coming into their fucking shit towns and fucking raping and killing everybody that doesn't get on board. What would you do? Right? I have a real problem with it, because it's so about the money, and it's so about capitalism. And as we have gone global, not really thinking about taking care of our people. And we're going to see it. This is the beginning of the end, not of the world. I'm a very optimistic guy, but America 1.0, current capitalism 1.0, that can't sustain. I mean, we're not even hiring Americans. Somebody wrote a post I saw the other day on McDonald's. They walked in. There's literally 2 people working there now because everything's been automated, right? All the AI stuff is not going away because it's wonderful. But we're going to have a real crisis until we figure out how to solve it. I don't know if it's universal basic income. I don't know what the solve is.
No way. I don't think it can be that.
Oh, okay, fine. Yeah. But ultimately, otherwise, we're going to end up with America looking like a dystopian sci-fi movie like The Road. It won't be the pandemic that brings us to The Road.
It almost suggests what you're almost suggesting is the reason, by the way, I don't think UBI works is because they tried UBI basically with the pandemic checks, and that those themselves caused so much inflation, which is exactly, I used to make fun of Andrew Yang for that shit all the time. I'm like, what do you think is going to happen?
Okay, so how do you solve it then? How do you solve the fact that AI, automation, quality of life, you got people who can't even work in Utah, or there's 10,000, 100,000 jobs in Utah. How, if it's not universal basic income, which you know more about it than I do, but what is the proposal? We just wait for it to all go to fucking 1300 medieval times again?
I think that there's so like serfdom or whatever. I think there's some theories that there's a name for it. I can't remember it, but the whole premise that when economies turn over, new jobs are created that you couldn't even imagine existing.
Sure.
And I think that there's probably something to that, but I think that there probably is going to be a permanent jobless class as we get older. Like you would think that would be 5%, 10% or whatever, but that almost suggests that we should really limit immigration, that we can't even deal with our own people,
assuming we actually got the resources. Like I said,
right.
I don't have a beef against people who are right leaning, but don't tell me that, they're taking our resources and we would use that to help our people. When does that ever happen?
Well, I will say that I think I agree with you generally, but I think it's much more literal now, because now you're seeing it in these so-called sanctuary cities where you're seeing the resources being taken from you right before your eyes, right? That's why there are homeless people that don't have places to sleep in New York City. It's why LA is like a tent city now. And so I think you're right generally, like we have to keep that energy in a grander way. But you're seeing it at the municipality and certainly at the state level, where it's like, well, you're seeing it, man. I mean, if you have, no offense, but if you have 2 kids of illegal immigrants that are themselves illegal immigrants in your class, that is in and of itself taking away from you, as a citizen of the United States. I feel for the people, especially in Central and South America, that are escaping all of these terrible things. But for me, especially in the Northern Triangle countries or whatever, it's like your first stop is Mexico. Not the United States. You're going all the way through Mexico to get to the United States and then claiming asylum. And that's not the way asylum works. And so there are your first safe borders where you claim asylum by international law. So there's just all sorts of ways.
Is Mexico defined as a safe border?
Yeah, I think Mexico is generally safe. There are a couple of like narco states towards the north part of the country, I think. But if you're in I think like Mexico City is fairly safe and places like that. But no, it's much safer than the places they're coming from. And I just think, and certainly stable, we wouldn't tolerate a truly unstable country on our border, I think. And so that's an important part too. But I feel for people. It's not only Hispanics that are coming through over illegally. It's everyone. And there are tons of illegal Irish people, Russians, Africans, Asians from all sorts of different countries. They're all coming over. Chinese people. It's just, I think we need to have a control over it. So I would love to continue a very targeted legal immigration system where it's like, what do we specifically need? I think also like guest worker programs are really good for low income or more blue collar or really no skill labor. If you needed to hire workers on your farm or whatever, and they expatriate their money and so on and so forth. I think that's totally fine. There needs to be some control over it. And it sucks because the longer we let this go, the worse it's going to become to fix the problem. And that's why I think a lot of Republicans feel this way in their caucuses. You got to shut the border, like you got to seal the border first. Like that's the first order of business. And I agree with that. And then you deal with whatever's going on. I think that then the people that are here, it's like, I don't know, it's probably pathway to, I don't want to say pathway to citizenship because I really don't think that that's a very good idea, but I think like legalizing you or normalizing your existence here so you can come out of the shadows and you can work and you can pay taxes and do all these kinds of things. If you want to become a citizen, maybe you get out and go back to the back of the line and don't cut in front of the people that have been waiting on the line that entire time. But we can't even begin to worry about that until we actually have a hold on everyone that's here.
Maybe the reason the left struggles as much as they do on this is that why why is the right always so quick to preach that kind of morality and do the right thing when it comes to poor people? But you can be the richest motherfucker who totally fucked millions in 2008 with the housing crisis, and no one except one guy saw jail time, and they're back to doing it again. That's okay?
Yeah, I mean,
of course, I know you would say that's not okay, but what I'm saying is we're very selective, I guess, on the left and the right about who we want to follow the good, noble word and who's okay getting away with it. And this is what I mean about it's a bigger picture. All of these things are us being bamboozled by the powers that be. This is what you should care about. This is what you should fight over. This is what you need to focus on, because ultimately the ones who are getting away with it, not going to jail, are the really fucking rich people. And the ones that are suffering because they're getting this kind of like, now be a good American, be a good citizen. You think these motherfuckers are good citizens? They metaphorically raped the shit out of the American public, and they got away with it. And then our tax dollars went to fucking bail them out. Are you out of your mind? How can you even, before you throw those fuckers, you know, in a fucking jail cell, how can we even consider, oh, well, you know, my kid's class is a little bigger? I get it. That's bad. That sucks. That's bad.
And I just use that as an example of a material way it might affect the person, you know?
Yeah.
It's a good example, sort of, but we're also at a time where most people can get a better education over a fucking computer with YouTube and Khan Academy than they can at a fucking 50-person classroom anyway. But it's a good example. It's not a nothing. It's not a nothing. It's important. I have kids. I want them to go to good schools, but I'm just saying that until we can recognize, it's almost like we're fighting. There's a real dragon we should all be fighting, whatever side you're on, which is in a lot of ways why a lot of the far left people like me have more in common with the fucking January 6 people than you would imagine. It's not that I agree with what they did, but they don't believe the bullshit anymore. And they're right. But Trump's wasn't the guy they should have been following. But I'm just, I don't mean to derail it, but it's like, you can't really talk about it, in my opinion. Maybe this is what I'd like to know. Do you think I'm wrong? Because can you actually isolate the issue of illegal immigration in America and deal with that as a unique problem if you don't also take into account what has caused it to become the problem to begin with and how it has its tendrils in all of our capitalist leanings?
Sure, but I actually think that you could just take it the very limited white collar crime or insinuation of white collar crime having to do with illegal immigration as in and of itself a crime that should be that crimes that are being committed and should be tried, and if they're guilty, obviously put away for a little while. The example I would use is, and again, lots of agricultural companies and meat companies and everything use illegal labor. They know they're using illegal labor. They don't want to have E-Verify and all these things where they use legal labor. They want it to be as cheap and off the books as possible, dangerous. If someone gets hurt, you know, don't have, the OSHA's not really looking around. That kind of stuff could and should be the reason that they don't do that is because the scare tactics, and I guess they're reasonable scare tactics, is to say, like, well, if you want your food to be more expensive, then we can have American citizens pick your grapes, and we can have American citizens slaughter your cows and all that, and you'll be paying X amount instead of Y amount, and that's sufficient enough to scare people. But maybe we just need to do the right thing, right? And it's easy for, I guess, people in our positions to say that, I'll pay another $1 for my meat or whatever, fine. And some people are like, no, I don't want that to be. And so I think that space between is that's the whole point, is that it's only allowed to exist like this. It's allowed to exist. Only the United States. Yes. The United States isn't like some Wild West place where that anything goes. It's not. Things are allowed to happen. And Ben, we haven't heard from you yet. I wanted to get you in here.
I don't know is my answer. And that doesn't mean I don't have anything to say. It just means that over the years, my perspective and opinions on this particular topic and many topics have changed drastically. And I think that's healthy to constantly question things. But I guess I'll start off by saying my brother-in-law's wife just became a citizen. He was in China and met her. She was not from China. She was from Egypt. He met her. They came home for a visit. She was already planning on, getting her citizenship, following the proper protocol. But they came for a visit in February of 2020, and then never were able to go back. So they've been here ever since. But so she just recently became a citizen through the normal means, and she said it was very easy. Followed all the rules. The test questions were ridiculously easy, and she was like, anybody who reads the book or goes to the class once will understand it. Now, I know the situation there is she was married to a citizen, so of course that's going to be a much different / easier process than for someone who is just wanting to come to the United States. So there is a little bit of, I suppose you could say, privilege in that. But she was telling me that there were many people in her class, excuse me, her citizenship class and her, I don't remember what they call it, but basically her cohort of people who became citizens at the same time, who were, that wasn't their situation. They were just immigrating from somewhere else. And she said that they all had a very similar experience. It was many people from Middle and South America, and from Mexico, I would assume, and also plenty of people from all over the place. And many of them, none of them really had, like, you hear the horror stories, and I believe them, that there are, years and years and years longs worth of things. People can't get anybody to respond to their stuff. They can't, they try to go through the process the normal way, or the correct way, and they can't. And I'm sure that's the case, but at least in this particular instance, this one class, I guess maybe it was an anomaly. There was no, like, everyone besides her was like coming in from, somewhere that they didn't have any relationship to, and were totally fine. So in one sense, I'm like, well, then I'm all about people coming in, come on in and enrich our society. We definitely, I want more color and more vibrance. I don't just mean skin color, but also that, like, more, eccentricity, more different things
more color
in our culture. Yeah. But it doesn't, always seem to make sense. I was also talking, this has been a few years ago now, to a man from Mexico, who I met while I was on a work trip. And he just volunteered that he wasn't a citizen. I'm like, well, you're working here. And he's like, yeah, they don't mind. And I was like, oh, are you, like, do you have your green card? You're trying to get, he's like, no, that's too expensive. And I was like, well, what do you mean? I said, how much, what's the cost? And he said, well, it's not that it really costs that much. It's that, like, if I become a citizen, I have to pay taxes, and I have to, pay for, like, car registration, and I have to, and talking through all these things. And he's like, it's just easier not to. And I'm like, well, how'd you get here? He's like, we just came in. We just walked across. And I think he was younger when it happened. So, may have been his parents. And he's like, I've been here for 20 years and never become a citizen. And
there's nothing stopping you from flying here and just never going back to the airport. I mean, that's it. That's all it takes.
He's like, technically, I'm an illegal immigrant. Like, he has no documentation, whatever. And I'm like, well, it seems like it would have been easier to avoid that. And certainly not everyone who's illegally immigrating is doing it to avoid taxes. Like, some of them are legitimately fleeing for their lives. They're seeking a better life. I have no problem with people wanting to enhance their standard of living, but so I don't know. On one hand, it does seem like it should be pretty easy to go through the process and become a citizen. And I don't have any problem with people who are not born natively here coming here. That's good. I just think they should do it the right way. And all of my experiences with people I've met and know and trust say that it is a fairly simple process when done correctly. But I also know there are many horror stories and many people without resources of it not being very simple and easy. So I guess what I'll say is, like, my opinion on it used to be very, like, hardline. No, if you didn't come the right way, you should go to jail. You should get sent back, whatever. Now I'm a little more bleeding heart, a little bit like, oh, let's give them another chance. Let's give them immunity, and then we'll keep, we'll enforce it in the future. But again, I
agree with you there. I don't want to expel anyone. I just want to stop the flow. Yeah.
My problem is I just don't think we actually will stop the flow. We'll give everybody immunity, and then we'll just keep doing what we've been doing. So I guess my opinion on the subject is still developing and still being informed. But I'm not nearly as hard-nosed about it as I used to be. But I'm also not terribly sympathetic either to people who come in illegally. Yeah. So that's my very non-answer for this
Fair
question.
Enough.
I just want to follow up on that, though, because the idea of people coming in and not going through the process, my understanding, and I was just checking to verify, is that the reason now we've got 15 million or whatever the number is, 11, I don't know what the number is right now, is because the Biden administration made a change and said, we want to make it easier to apply for asylum. So you can apply for asylum in America now from your computer, from the local post office. And then once you send it, then you can come. You're in the system. They do let you into America to these sort of border cities where they can track you. They lose track of people. But a lot of that big number is because we've actually are tracking them now and have them on paperwork now. And they're saying, hey, I want to go through the process. We're not 15 million sneaking in. We're doing what the administration said we should do. Right. And we're filling out the paperwork. You know who we are. You know where we supposedly live. And so they are kind of doing that.
Yeah. And there's a backlog of years, supposedly.
Yeah, 2034, I think some of the cases aren't going to be seen until, which is just, that's the whole point though. Like we can't withstand it, you know, like I think we're all kind of on the same page where I don't think any of us want to stop legal immigration. I don't think any of us see a purpose, or I think I should say, let me back up. I should say that we all see the purpose of why this system is allowed to exist for different socioeconomic reasons. And it's a shame because I think the way I would put it is the group of illegal immigrants in the United States, most of them living on either in safe sanctuary cities or localities where they're not going to be bothered, or on the margins of society, which is not where we want them to be anyway. We want people to be able to call 911 if they have a problem. We want people to pay their fucking taxes and all that kind of stuff and pay into the system and not just take from it. But I think, unfortunately, the powers that be in the United States realize that that group of people getting taken advantage of, they know they're being taken advantage of. And that situation is better than where they come from. So they're not really going to make much of a stink about it. People... Right. Representatives on border towns and Congress and everything, they more rally for those kinds of things. But I think the status quo for a lot of these people is generally fine because they don't want to go back to where they came from. And I don't blame them at all. But I think we have to just be realistic about, we have the space. We have plenty of space for people. It's just a matter of how does it work? And how does it affect people that are here? And how does it affect, before we had a vibrant, fully, let's say an open border policy in the United States, before we ever embraced that libertarian ideal or whatever, I would want to make sure that we really didn't have any homeless people, or like that being, I know the idea that like being homeless is somewhat of a choice, like long-term and all of that, and that there's like all these resources or whatever, but like really do something about it and really clean this place up and get people the help they need and get them the job training and the place to live and all that kind of stuff, and do all of that for those that are here first. Like that just seems to be logical. Instead, we just push a lot of illegal immigrants, and you see videos of them coming out of New York, LA, San Francisco, all these other places where they're just kind of pushed in with the homeless population. And it just makes,
I guarantee you, if you put it up, if the powers that be were that willing and you put it on the ballot and said, hey, we can totally close the borders for the next 10 years, but there is a 90% chance doing so will yield 0 or say 5% homelessness instead of what it is now, or it'll reduce it by 80%. I guarantee you that would win in a landslide. The problem is you're offering up a solution that's not really being offered to anyone. I would love what you're saying to happen, but it's never going to happen. Because like you said, who's going to pick the grapes?
Right. And isn't that such a sad and fucked reality? I mean, it kind of comes back to paying people what they're worth and like a living wage. And this is where inflation comes in and it's horrible. It's horrible that the choice is, will agricultural corporation A take advantage of the illegal population to pick this stuff at $4 an hour, or will they, and therefore sell the product at this, or will they give it $8 or $10 an hour to, a minimum wage to, American citizens, thus charging this much for their product. And they just look at it and they're like, we don't have to make that choice. Like, we don't have to make any choices. So we're just going to sit here and just continue to do. And I don't know. I just feel like, which is again, drives me batshit when the people who are struggling financially are like, Republicans, vote Republican. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about you. I'm not saying the liberals don't take advantage of people either. Of course they do. But don't you appreciate, I think you would know better than anyone because you come from Alabama. So you know deep Republicanism. We're more moderate Republicans on Long Island, like we always talk about. But I would say that modern Republicanism, like post 2015, 2016 Republicanism, is merely a reactionary movement to American liberalism. It has no other purpose.
That's why I think that's fair.
Yeah, that's why I left. That's why I left like
fair.
the party itself, because I'm like, I'm happy to become a Republican again in the future if they come to their senses. I just don't. I think the real weird permanence of political parties in the United States, that's really not a thing in other places in the world, and wasn't a thing for many years here. I think that's the problem. And so
hopefully the internet will kind of bring us some independence that actually win. And we can, the world can the Americans can get behind them. But
Jaffe,
I don't.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that, we were talking about the pandemic, and when you think about it, we did have that experience, like Dagan was saying. We could have become the road. And imagine, and maybe sometimes I just wish people, and again, I don't mean to be a dick and a judgy person. I suffer from this too, but to put ourselves in the shoes of other people and not to sort of, oh, well, they're so different from us. They're so far away. I can't even imagine their lives. They live, as Trump says, in a shithole or whatever. To put ourselves in their shoes for a moment, imagine if America had just become that because of COVID. But Canada somehow miraculously had figured out a way to not die. There's not a wall you could build if I was trying to save my kids that I wouldn't try to climb.
The Handmaid's Tale deals with that.
Yeah. And I'm not unique. That's not me saying I'm a great dad. That's any fucking parent.
Right.
No, totally.
And so I just wish there wasn't such fucking cruelty associated with it on the people who are against it, because it's like we can be practical and we can be smart and all that, but these are fucking people, man.
Totally.
And these are people with fucking families that are running from some of the worst.
That's the whole thing.
Poverty and crime we can't even imagine.
Well, that's why I think the reactionary nature of conservatism, there is always inherently a reactionary tinge to conservatism, but that it exists only for that purpose right now is troublesome, just because I often, and I think Ben would probably agree, is that the Democrats should be very thankful that they're dealing with this Republican Party. Like a halfway competent conservative movement would wipe the floor with them. That like
what happened was in Ohio, they just got their ass kicked with the abortion law?
Which is like these things that just don't need to be fought. Kansas was the previous one where it's like, it's just a non-starter, but because they're stuck in a cult of personality around a losing candidate, which is what they are. Trump only becomes president if there's a third party that takes a lot of votes away from Biden. Like that's it. He's not going to win.
Or if Biden dies.
Or if Biden dies, and maybe it's Harris or something like that. Or even, I don't know who else it's going to be at this point. Gavin Newsom's, California's horrible. So I don't think I saw
somebody literally floating seriously, like a pundit, saying that the talk is they're going to get Michelle Obama. I'm like, why? I like her as a human, but
that's weird.
I like The Rock as a human. I don't want to be in the fucking
remember
president.
He was going to run for president. There was there was talk back in the day that he was going to run too. But I think
it would be, but come on.
But unfortunately, like we live in a time now where there's no cogent. I mean, a lot of it has to do with media control and propaganda and government.
Who you want to have a beer with? Who gives a fuck?
Right. Like
idiot?
at the same time, I think that there's like in the corners is a cogent conservatism that could offer up ideas that can deal with this. And I think a lot of it just comes from like center rationalism of just solving these problems from a humanitarian and economic point of view, treating people with respect and having national borders like every other country does, so that you take care of the people within first and foremost. I think that's why a lot of people...
I have the solution. It's right back there on my wall. Can you see the bumper sticker?
Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah. That would be a dream come true to, I don't want to be, oh my God, I would never actually want to be president.
I know what a lot of Colin's policies would be like. And I have no idea what Chris would enact upon the world.
No, we would lose Game Pass day one. No way. No, thank you.
I'll put a tariff on all subscriptions to get back to a la carte. But
that's right.
I just wanted to kind of air this out with you guys and see what you guys thought about this topic, because it's coming more and more into the news, and I think it's creeping more and more into liberal enclaves in a way that is inescapable because of, like I said, a very rare smart political move by the Republicans in the last 10 years and in a series of blunders, frankly, where they're like, we're just going to send them to you guys now. And I think that's waking people up, because there really is a problem in places on the border, and we got to do something about it. It's just, it's unfair to everyone involved. But it sucks because this reactionary conservatism reacts in such a way where it's either totally anti-immigrant, which is not the American way. And I think there are very few people that really want no immigration. Right. And because I think everyone kind of gets that, but it's also like where the immigrants are coming from. And there seems to be like a racial tinge to that as well, or a lot of the immigrants, which to me, that's as American as apple pie, unfortunately, too, going all the way back to Chinese immigrants and all the rest. But at the same time, that's going from place to place, and people being attracted over generations from different places is the way it goes. Like, that's just the way it goes. So it's like a Latin American infusion comes from these next couple of generations, just as the, Italians came over in the 1910s and 1920s, just like the Irish came over 40s, 50s, 60s in the 1800s and so on.
Well, now we're back to Ben's topic, right? Because ultimately a lot of this racism is either you don't live in a big city, you didn't go to college in a college town, you haven't traveled. I imagine if you've only grown up in a town, and there are many, where there are very few people who aren't different than you would probably be like, what the fuck? Right? I mean, a lot of it is people just don't know. People don't congregate with people who are that different. I mean, in Alabama, we had one black kid in the school, and he was like, everyone knew him because, that's the black kid.
Yeah.
Not in Alabama, but in my town.
Yeah, right.
I'm just saying, I don't know how much that plays a part, but when you get to know people, the idea of having a bias against them because of their skin color is, or at least a bias that takes you into a place where you act on it. It's bizarre. And it's like, just watch some fucking Star Trek. It's like, Jesus, she's got green skin. You'd still fuck her. You would. I'd fuck the shit out of that green skin girl. Who was the one? There was a blue girl in the Abrams movies, a blue alien. Good God almighty. I swear I'd bend her over that fucking captain's chair and we'd go to Pound Town. Because the thing is, Colin, the blue ladies, the Blue Men group, I don't know where I'm going with this. Hey,
this took a turn. Yeah. I was just along for the ride.
I don't know where it's going to get off. Where's the off ramp?
Let's get out of here on that note. Let's go around the horn and say goodbye to everyone as we wrap up this episode. Dagan, good to have you back. Goodbye to you.
Good seeing you guys. I realized something was different. The whole conversation, I was like, what? This seems off. And you know what it is? Listen. No barking dog.
Oh.
Dog's still with the in-laws.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Peaceful
for now. Well, we'll see you next week. Jaffe, thanks for taking the time to sit with us this week.
Of course. Thank you guys always for having me. It was fun. I always like being here and chatting with you guys. And I enjoyed it. Good conversation.
Cool. Thanks. And Ben, thanks for taking the time to talk to us before this weekend begins. For us recording anyway.
Very happy to. Yeah. Enjoyed it. Enjoyed finally getting to I've talked to and played Call of Duty with Jaffe and kicked his ass. But
we will meet again on the battlefield, you fuck. I am coming after you. You're really good, you son of a bitch. Oh my God. I don't know if I'll ever be able to get as good. I've tried. I recognize it. I have footage where I see that moment where I'm like, I see the guy. I know he's there. My brain registers that he's there. I just can't get the crosshair close enough before he does it to me. I don't think I'm ever going to be. You can't prove that. You can't get better at that.
Yeah, I'm bad at that stuff too.
You can, but I don't think people like you and I who play casually can.
Yeah, it's. I was just like, you see me.
You have to dedicate life and time to it. It's, And I
it was nice meeting you in person ish. And let's shoot each other again soon.
That sounds good, man. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, no problem. And thank you all out there for your love, kindness, and support of all things Last Stand Media. LastStandMedia.store for merch, including new merch. Check it out. Patreon.com/LastStandMedia for early ad-free access. You know the drill. We'll see you next time for more. Until then, goodbye. Constellation is a product of Last Stand Media and Colin's Last Stand LLC and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show was conceived by and is directed and hosted by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-host is my brother, Dagan Moriarty. The show is produced by Last Stand's executive producer, Dustin Furman, and is edited by associate producer, Ben Smith. All Last Stand theme music is by Ramon Narvaez, and all of our graphics and logos are by Dagan Moriarty. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's podcasts, including Constellation, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest support tier, and we're infinitely grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor.
Bye.